Council for May 25th, 2022. We have 2 members absent tonight. People are doing double duty, and Michelle will serve as secretary for the meeting. Jill is taking minutes for the meeting. So Michelle, could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Claire?
Here.
Greg? Not here. Michelle? Here. Len is not here. Jill? Here. Dan?
Here.
Dave?
Here.
5 present.
We have a quorum. I'm going to try to, we've got a really packed meeting tonight, a lot of things to get to. I'm going to try to reduce some of the confusion that some people have been experiencing and just explain what we're doing as we go along, just so that everybody knows where we are. So we're going to start with reports from government officials. That's anybody like Half Moon Bay or other groups that have updates of what their activities are. So maybe Harvey, you could start off.
I'll be glad to. I have 3 items that are of interest to the Midcoast. At our last city council meeting, we heard about e-bikes and any ordinances about allowing or disallowing them on the coastal trail and the parallel trail. And after a lot of discussion, we all agreed that we don't know enough to make intelligent decisions, and we wanted to cooperate with state parks, with can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. With state parks and other relevant agencies. So we're going to be studying the best way to deal with e-bikes, which are increasingly popular and a good way to help the environment. Let me see if I can recall the other items. I went to the SAM board meeting 2 days ago, and the report from the general manager about the level of virus in the sewage was amazing. It's something like 100 times higher than it's been recently. So COVID is definitely still with us, and something that we should all be taking into consideration in our daily lives. The last item that concerns Midcoast is the CARES program, which the city has initiated to respond to calls that involve mental health issues, domestic disputes, anything where an armed response is not the appropriate response from the sheriff's office. It's been very successful. And the good news is it looks like, and this isn't 100% certified yet, but that the county is going to increase our funding level so that the Midcoast can also participate in this program, which is going to be increasing to more than the 8 hours a day that it's the initial part of the program. So that's exciting for dealing with something that should be the province of mental health professionals and not armed guards, armed deputies. That's all I got. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Harvey? Harvey, I would say if they're going to extend this program to the Midcoast, we would like to be involved in some way, at least to advise.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Is there anybody else from any other government agencies that wishes to speak?
Oh, I just had a quick question for Harvey. When you say it's going to be extended to the Midcoast, is that going to be paid for by the county or by Half Moon Bay, or how's that going to work?
The county's going to chip in. We have a number of grants in the works, state money, county money. the city council has already authorized $75,000. So it's a mix of funding sources.
Thank you.
Dave?
Yeah, just a real quick announcement. I ran into a civil engineer at the Medio Creek Bridge yesterday, and they are planning to start construction June 6th. And they will be working 7 a.m. to sunset, Monday through Friday. I can see Lena was already set to say all of this. And they may be working on weekends as needed for shorter hours, but that's not their initial plan.
Lena, I overlooked you. Please go ahead.
No, I liked it. It was a switch up. It's fun. And I have a couple of things. I know we've got a packed agenda, so I will make it as fast as I can. And thank you, Dave, for adding that. I have some contacts I'll put in. If anyone has other questions about that project, I have some engineers you can discuss that with. So my first thing is, I probably wasn't the only one who had trouble focusing today on their tasks after the shooting in Texas. Actually the supervisor and I were in a meeting about firearm safety with the DA and the sheriff when we heard about it. And I don't want to take too much time in this meeting, but if anyone's curious about the projects we have going on, we're trying to put at least a 1.5 million in to making sure that illegal firearms are confiscated in San Mateo County, and we'll have more information on that. And I would love to talk to anyone who's interested and give them more information on what's going on with that. We're working on updating our tobacco retailer ordinances, mostly to protect the underage and illegal purchases of tobacco equipment, but as also to kind of increase the penalties for illegal activity involving sale of tobacco materials. The Caltrans, I don't know what's called now, but the VMS, the signs on Highway 1 was supposed to go to the Planning Commission yesterday or this morning, sorry. But there was a little bit of miscommunication and they wanted a little bit more time to respond to the planning staff's recommendation of denial of the project to the Planning Commission for CDP. So they're going to have another month to kind of respond to the project summary and the recommendation by planning staff to the Planning Commission. We're still working on a minimum wage increase in San Mateo County that would go into effect at the beginning of next year. We just learned that the state is going to increase the minimum wage to $15.50. So now we're as the county level just trying to increase it to $16.50 in the unincorporated area for employers of 26 and more. Again, I don't want to get into any nitty gritty, but if people are curious, I'll put my email in the chat and I'd love to schedule a meeting and chat more about that. We're supervisors Pine and Slocum are working with the Fixin San Mateo group to look into how the board can create a civilian oversight committee for the sheriff's office. This is going to be a long process, but would love to have the MCC's input as that progresses and gets kind of more into the creation side of things. They just started those meetings. I'm not going to go into the COVID update. Harvey summarized it really well, but I'll throw some statistics in the chat for people who are curious. On the gun violence side of things also, we do not have any gun buybacks scheduled for the coast side just yet, but I thought you guys might be interested to know that I think the closest one we'll probably get is in South San Francisco. It's on June 4th. You can return a gun for $100, no questions asked. You don't need any paperwork. If it's unserialized or a ghost gun, that's $200. And I'll put the information of where that is and when the timing of it. I'm also going to put a little plug for voting 411. It's by the League of Women Voters. You got till June 7th to vote. Really would be great to flex that right. So I'm going to put that in the chat too if anyone hasn't received their ballot and wants to know how they could still vote. And also, I've been getting the beach water quality emails. And especially as it gets hotter, it'd probably be good to know because I think Linda Marr just is leading in pollution right now for beaches, and it's kind of good to know that you're not supposed to go in that water. So I'll put a link to how you can sign up to that email and get the weekly updates on the water quality. And I hope I did take too long. That was all my updates.
Thank you, Lena. I think Dave has a question. No? Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Where are you?
Right here.
You must be on my second page. Go ahead, Dan. I think it's you, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Lena, for your report. Looks like your hydrated plants in the background might be helping you stay cool, and I see some sunshine coming through still. Thank you for your report. And a couple quick questions, please. I'm curious on the shoring method that they're going to use at the Media Creek Bridge, and also on today's planning meeting and the whole VMS sign. It's my understanding that everybody agrees they're off the table, the VMS signs. I know what's left is the traffic operations systems, what they're going to choose there. Am I wrong to think that everybody agrees right now the VMS signs are really not preferred?
You're not wrong. I was a little bit confused too, because there's been different names floating around. And yeah. I think what the county planners are recommending is no signage. It doesn't match the character and the different quality expectations for the coast side. But I'm unclear if it's still part of the project. I think that's part of why Caltrans wanted an extra month to come back to the Planning Commission, because they only saw the planning department's report 2 days ago. So they feel like they have more to say on it. So we thought we'd give them a chance. But I think that's right in the sense of what the planning department was recommending is no signs.
Okay, and then the Midcoast Community Council, before Caltrans goes back to planning, are we going to have a chance to see what their new proposal is?
That's a good question. I don't know, but let me get you in contact with the project manager.
The planner will send it to the MCC the way they send all the planning documents. And if for some reason that doesn't happen, I monitor the Planning Commission agenda and I'll send it out.
Thanks,
all right,
Dave.
great. Thank you. And then is there any, does anybody know, Dave or Lena, what is the basic method of the shoring? One time they talked about shotcrete. Right now there's extra, the riprap there. What's it going to look like?
The plans are all on the MCC website that were approved by the Coastal Commission.
Is that the one that there were so many changes?
Yeah.
There's actually been almost no changes.
The final plans are on the website.
Okay.
And I'll shoot you a message with the people who can answer all those questions in great detail, because they're helping with it. So
yeah, sounds like the shotcrete wall is going to be what they're going to go with.
Yeah, the Board of Supervisors at their May 16th meeting approved purchases of easements from all the adjacent properties for the shotcrete walls and for the soil nails.
Okay. And my guess is they're gonna build it out a little bit and regain some because that driveway is very narrow now. So they'll probably build it out and then shore it up, I guess. Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested to look at I'll look at what's on the MCC website. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. Anybody else for Lena? We have somebody from RCD.
Yes. Hi. Thanks, Claire. Hi, everybody. Sheena Sidhu, Forest Health and Fire Resiliency Program Manager for RCD. I'll keep my updates brief. We did have our Midcoast Tripper program earlier this month, and we did have an increase from last year. And so we're tallying up the final numbers of tiles that were collected, but increased participation in homes. And so just thank you to everybody that participated. When you work collectively, you're making the whole community more fire resilient versus, people doing it one-off. So congratulations to everybody who participated. The second update is for the El Granada Wildfire Resiliency Scoping Project. We have our next partner meeting tomorrow. At that meeting, we'll be discussing the output of the modeling and then the final steps to develop the full report, which will be presented to everybody by the last week of June. We're going to be finalizing that date tomorrow, and we'll start advertising when it's going to be. It's going to be an evening Zoom meeting where we'll have the consultants present, and then there'll be an opportunity for questions and discussion. And then the last update is that in partnership with county parks, we have the shaded fuel break and hazardous tree removal along the fire roads inside the park, over 100 acres. And a little bit of that started last fall, and then it's going to pick up. We paused it, and then we are going to continue the work starting on June 6th. So that's coming up very soon, and you should be hearing more about it. There'll be signs in the park as well, but that will be doing that shaded fuel break and hazardous tree removal in the park, and take a couple of months, and then pick up again next year as we continue to work along the fire roads. And if anybody has any questions, we do have information on our RCD website, or you're also welcome to reach out to me.
Okay. Anything right now from anybody? Thank you, Sheena. Barbara, are you? Wait a minute.
Quick question for Sheena.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Sheena. Is it possible that you could just give the basic, how does the chipper program work? Make a phone call or find the days that they're in the neighborhood, and then pull limbs out and have them on the front of the house, and then a chipper comes by and just takes care of it. Is that how it works?
Yeah. We have our event, and you need to pull out your vegetation and put it on the roadside. The flyers that we've distributed along the roads that were serviced, and we also have information on our website. You're supposed to put it in nice, neat piles that it's easy for the chipper. We hire a contract crew that come out and just like pull out the material and put it into the chipper. So it's considered like a cost share program where the resident or homeowner does the work to get the vegetation up to the roadside, and then we will come in and get it chipped for free. And that's all through the county Measure K funds and some external funds that supplement paying the contractors.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Barbara, are you representing GCSD? Do you have a report?
I don't have a report tonight, thanks.
Okay. I have an announcement that the groundbreaking for the parallel trail will be this coming Thursday, not tomorrow, but the week after, June 2nd at 11:30 along Coronado Street at Highway 1. So you're all welcome. This should be fun. Is there anybody else with a government agency that has a report? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda, which is a collection of things that we do not debate. We just vote up or down. We're supposed to have minutes to vote on. We do not have any minutes, so we'll pull that from the agenda. I get frequent requests to honor various groups, and I feel bad saying no, but I don't want to spend a lot of time honoring people that really we're not dealing with. So I'm going to make a habit of recognizing 2 things each month, and we'll just vote to recognize them and move on. This in the consent agenda this time is the Asian Pacific Islanders Heritage Month and Mental Health Awareness Month. So in the consent agenda, we're simply voting to recognize those 2 events. So Michelle, if you could call the roll. Oh no, wait a minute. We need a motion
to approve the consent agenda with the minutes pulled.
Give a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Could you call the roll, please, Michelle?
Yes. Claire?
Yes.
Greg is not here. Len is not here. Jill?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Approved 5-0.
Thank you very much. And I'm trying so hard to stay organized that I'm not doing it. I completely skipped public comment, and that's important. So public comment is a chance for people to make a brief statement up to 3 minutes in length on anything that's not on tonight's agenda. And what's on tonight's agenda is housing, Quarry Park master plan, correspondence about lead fuel for aircraft, and a grant application for highway studies. So anything other than those, if somebody has anything they would like to say, we do not discuss it, we just simply listen. And Steve Kikuchi, I think, wanted to say something. You're up, Steve.
Thank you. My name is Steve Kikuchi, and I'm a board member with Senior Coastsiders, here to raise awareness and advocate for the almost 20% of your citizens who are over 65 and reside north of Half Moon Bay. Some of you may be familiar with Senior Coastsiders, located at the south end of Half Moon Bay, as it has been in existence for close to 45 years. We provide vital services, including our most well-known nutrition program, which includes daily lunch and home-delivered meals. We serve thousands of seniors and their families annually with care management, providing advice and hands-on help navigating the special needs of older adults. Isolated seniors are more connected by our enrichment program, which offers in-person and social distance learning opportunities with classes and everything from exercise, art, and writing, along with special event offerings throughout the year. Our volunteer program enlists over 300 individuals, providing the chance to make a difference and be part of a winning team, and by serving others enhances their purpose and meaning. Even though our center is in the city of Half Moon Bay, over half of those we serve reside in unincorporated El Granada, Princeton, Moss Beach, and Montara. These residents may be more isolated with fewer available services. Each year in the springtime, Senior Coastsiders coordinates volunteers for their home repair day, in which we work on seniors' homes. This year's repair day is in 2 weeks on June 4th. Activities include installing grab bars, handrails, repairing decks, building access ramps, painting inside and out, and keeping weeds and branches at bay. This is all to make sure that older adults can safely remain within their homes. Throughout the year, we provide emergency home repairs as needed. I have been participating in the home repair event for over 25 years, and it is almost impossible to describe the gratitude of those who are volunteers, professional contracting partners, and staff serve in this way. For many, it is the difference that makes it possible for them to remain independent in their own homes. Our home repair programs are largely funded through generous private donations. The coast site is a patchwork of small towns without sufficient tax base or centralized administration of senior services. This means that support for older adults is left to nonprofits like Senior Coastsiders. We encourage you to learn more about direct ways that the Midcoast Community Council can join forces with us and encourage the residents to take advantage of the center. Let's make sure that all those lives that are on the coast have the opportunity for the best quality of life as possible. Thanks for your time. If you have the opportunity, please visit our website at seniorcoastsiders.org.
Thank you, Stephen. Crystalline, you're up.
Thank you. I just wanted to let everybody know that the Coastside Business Development Center is open, and we did it last week, and we'll have a ribbon cutting sometime soon. We have a little bit of fit and finish, but our meeting space and our classroom space are available. There's a form on our website if any group, local group or business wants to use the space. If they want to teach a class and they work from home and you don't want to do it out of your home, like, we've got the space for you. And then we also have the business center where we now can provide consulting. So if somebody's thinking about starting a business or has run into a hurdle with their business, they can meet with us and we can try our very best to help everybody get through anything they're running into. So we are open and ready.
Sounds great. Thanks, Crystalline. Any other public comment? Okay, so we will go into the regular agenda. And the way this works is we have a presentation. And after that's over, we do a series of things. The first is clarifying questions from the council. This has to be really specific. Like, I didn't understand what that category you just talked about meant on your graph. Not opinions, just straight facts. Then we go to public comment, and usually we're looking for public comment of 3 minutes or less. And then we close public comment and go to council discussion and voting if there's something to be voted on. So the first item, there is no vote on. This is simply for our information. And it's a presentation by Janeth Lujan from County Planning on the county's housing element of its general plan. Janeth, are you here?
Thank you, Claire. It's actually Will Gibson from the Planning and Building Department, although Janeth did set up the agenda item. So it'll be me today.
Well, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair, and good evening, council members. Thank you for having me here today. I'm just going to share my screen quickly. Let me just get that up. And you should be seeing it now. Let me know if my screen is not visible, please. As the chair said, this is an informational briefing on the 2023 to 2031 update to the housing element of the county's general plan. And what I intend to do today is just to provide a contextual and background briefing on the process and the progress of the update itself. The Planning and Building Department, along with the Housing Department and a number of other partners, are working right now on the content of the updated housing element, and we will have a draft of that available this coming month. And at that point, we would hope we would transmit that draft to the council, come back for a briefing on that material, and then get comments and input from the council on the actual updated material. But before that, I wanted to come before you and provide some background on what is the housing element, what is this process, and what will be coming to you for your input very soon. So today, and I'll keep this brief. I know we are constrained for time. It'll be fairly brief and fairly general, but I'm happy to answer any questions in any level of detail after the presentation. So I'm going to cover today, what is the housing element? What are the various components that are in the housing element? What are some new requirements of the update process this time around? The process and timeline of the update, outreach and participation opportunities, past, present, and future for the update process, and some additional information. So just diving right into it. And please, if anything is not clear, I know you asked clarifying questions at the end, but you can also, if the council members want to jump in, if something is unclear, please feel free. So the housing element is a plan for the housing needed in a jurisdiction or community over the next 8 years. It's a part of the county's general plan, which establishes land use and development policies for the unincorporated county. It's required by state law. We must have a housing element. And it assesses, again, our current and future housing needs and incorporates goals, policies, and programs to address those needs. It must be updated again every 8 years. This is called the housing element cycle. And the update schedule is by region. So all of the Bay Area jurisdictions, cities and counties alike, are currently updating all of their housing elements on the same cycle. And then the updated housing element must be certified, must be submitted to the state, to the Department of Housing and Community Development, and they must certify that it is legally sufficient before it can take effect. So once we've updated the draft and all of the various authorities that the Planning Commission and the board have recommended adoption and have adopted it, then the state has to actually effectively adopt it as well. And the county housing element, importantly, is for the unincorporated county only. Each city has its own, and those incorporated areas will have a housing element update as well. Ours just covers the non-city areas. So the housing element components are also established by state law. It has a required set of components. They can take different forms, but the content is very strictly prescribed by the state. It must include an analysis of housing conditions and needs, an evaluation of various constraints to housing production, an analysis of our current housing element, the 2014 to 2022 housing element, which is the one that's in effect now, how effective the policies in that housing element were, what needs to be changed, what has been completed, what can be carried forward. Very importantly, and this is one of the key parts of the housing element, we must identify enough sites to meet our housing needs over the next 8 years. So developable or redevelopable properties that can provide enough housing units to meet our need. This is the sites inventory, quote unquote, and it must address what's called our regional housing needs allocation. And I'll go into, or RHNA, R-H-N-A, and I'll go into what that is and what that means in just a moment. And then again, we must have a housing plan with goals, policies, programs, and specific quantified objectives showing how we are going to address the housing need that we've identified for the next 8-year cycle. So housing conditions and needs, the first required element include demographic and economic analysis. We look at population change. We look at where and how people are living and working and how that's changed since the last housing element. The number and the type of housing units in the unincorporated community. Are they single family? Are they multifamily? What are the tenure for sale or rent? We look at housing production trends. How much housing is being built now? How is that projected to change in the future? Household types and sizes, income, poverty rates, housing costs, a variety of special housing needs. And then, of course, we look at what does the community say its housing issues are, its needs, and its goals going forward. On constraints to housing production, these include a variety of regulatory constraints. So we must look at, are there ways that our zoning regulations, our permit processing, our permitting fees, design standards for development may deter housing from being produced or slow it or make it more expensive. We look at environmental factors such as sensitive habitats, flood zones, seismic hazards. On the coast side, obviously, the sea level rise and tsunami risk and other indicators that are kind of specific to the coastal zone. We look at infrastructure. Is there water available, sewer, roads, electricity for housing production in different areas? And we look at a variety of other constraints that may make it more difficult or impossible to develop housing of various types in various areas. And then we get to the sites inventory. And again, this is an inventory of all of the developable or redevelopable properties that are available for housing production that in the unincorporated county that are sufficient to meet the county's regional housing needs allocation, or RHNA. And the RHNA is essentially the amount of housing needed in the unincorporated county over the next 8 years as determined by the state of California and the Association of Bay Area Governments. So this is not determined by us. The state determines the Bay Area's share of the state's housing need over the next 8 years. ABAG, the Association of Bay Area Governments, allocates that total regional share among all the Bay Area jurisdictions. So every city and county has a number, and it's a number broken down by income level for the need in the housing element cycle. So our share of that total need is the county's RHNA, and the housing element must show on a parcel by parcel basis that we have enough developable parcels that are feasibly going to be built on in the next 8 years to meet that RHNA number. And again, this is developed by ABAG following state law. What ABAG does is it makes growth and development projections that are specific to the counties and the cities and specific to areas within the county. And then, and the current RHNA, as it happens, assumes that most growth is happening and will happen in urbanized areas within the county. So that includes unincorporated urbanized areas such as North Fair Oaks, Devonshire, Plancolma, not so much the coastal and the rural areas. And that assumption drives the county's RHNA, but it doesn't mandate that we decide that housing has to be built in any specific area. And so just an example of what this looks like, this is the RHNA for the last housing element, 2014 to 2022. And that column, the RHNA 5 allocation, is the number of housing units that ABAG informed us we needed to plan for and have sites available for by income category, very low income, so affordable to these income categories, moderate income and above moderate income. And as you can see, the total was 913 units. As of about December of last year, we were at about 752 units actually built of that number. That has changed. I think we are a little, actually, this is updated. This is maybe January of this year, but we are somewhat closer than this shows. I don't think we're going to quite get there. The cutoff is June. So this cycle ends in June. Theoretically, we should have all those units built by June. We will not, but we do start fresh with a clean slate going on into the next cycle. And just for contrast, so you see the last in this RHNA 5 category column in the middle, you see the last housing element cycles RHNA allocation, and now you can see the RHNA 6 allocation, which is the next housing element cycle, 2022 to 2030. As you can see, it's 3 times larger than what we needed to plan for last time. So, and the greatest number of units, the greatest increase in units is in the very low income category and the low income category, as you can see, although it's larger across the board. So what ABAG and the state are telling us this time is that there's a significantly greater housing need. We are going to have to identify significantly more available sites on which to develop housing over the next 8 years. So, and this is, we are not unique in this situation. Every city, every county, not only the Bay Area and the state is facing this as well. The state has a very large need for housing and affordable housing. So we're all facing this challenge, which is a difficult one and a significantly larger challenge in this cycle. So to show that we can meet the RHNA, we complete this sites inventory. And so the sites inventory assesses all of the sites we have available for housing production. It can be vacant sites. It could be sites that have something built on it that might be redeveloped as housing. Those could include non-residential or residential sites, as long as they allow housing development on them. They must be feasibly developable in a reasonable time frame. So we look at the constraints on those sites. We look at the infrastructure available. We look at market conditions that show that sites like these are developing and are likely to continue. And if we do not demonstrate that we have enough sites to meet the RHNA, we must commit to creating more sites. And typically what that means is we'll be required to rezone various areas for either non-residential areas to residential development or residential areas to denser and more intense residential development. And just to note, we're not through with our sites inventory analysis yet. So we don't know if we are going to have enough sites to meet our need without any rezoning. If we don't, we have to commit to rezoning, and the rezoning has to be done on a fairly quick time frame. So this is the state telling us, you haven't shown us you have enough sites. You're going to have to take legislative actions to remedy that, whether you like it or not, essentially. And what the sites inventory looks like, we must have an actual map of sites. Every site that we identify must be in the housing element. Here you can see this is the unincorporated Central Coast. This is from the current housing element. So our identification of sites just in this one particular area by assessor's parcel number looks like this. And then it must have a list of the sites with an identifying assessor's parcel number. And now it also must have an address. It shows the size, it shows whether there are constraints. And it actually shows in this housing element cycle, we're going to provide a lot more detailed information on why we think each site is developable, what the actual constraints are, and what is the likelihood of development. But it's, in essence, it comes out in the housing element as a specific map showing the sites and a list of every single site and its developability. So turning to housing element goals, these are just an example of kind of the broad overarching goals of the housing element in the current element. And they include incentivizing and facilitating affordable housing for all residents at all income levels, allowing residents to live near their work, ensuring that all housing is safe and habitable, meeting, of course, our mandated RHNA targets from the state and from ABAG, affirmatively furthering fair housing for all sectors of the community, and responding to community needs and goals. And there are quite a few more in the housing element, but these are just some examples of the type of goals, the general goals that frame the element. And then those lead to specific policies and programs intended to meet our housing need. And these are some examples, again, from the prior housing element of the type of policies and programs that can be included. So in our prior housing element, we committed to updating our accessory dwelling unit regulations in order to facilitate more production of second units, accessory dwelling units. And we did on several occasions, although with the help of the state requiring all jurisdictions to do so as well, on several occasions, we relaxed the accessory dwelling unit regulations to promote more ADUs. We committed to adopting mobile home park protections to keep mobile home parks from being redeveloped as other uses. And the Board of Supervisors did adopt a range of mobile home park protections for the mobile homes in the county. We committed to expanding our multifamily residential health and safety inspections. Our environmental health department inspects multifamily properties for safety, and we did expand that program, so we inspect more apartment buildings more frequently now. The county committed to undertaking a farm labor housing study to try and identify the farm labor housing need, the farm labor community, and methods to address its housing needs. And we did complete that study and began a pilot program to fund new farm labor housing in the unincorporated county. And then we, just another example, we implemented the North Fair Oaks Community Plan, which is for the North Fair Oaks community on the Bayside, through multiple phases of rezoning for more intense residential development. So when we go back to the housing policies and programs and assess them and adopt new housing policies and programs, we look at how have housing needs changed, what other conditions have changed since the last housing element that we need to accommodate, what sites are available, of course, what policies and programs are needed now to address new or changed conditions, which policies and programs may be required to address RHNA shortfalls if we have any. And then, of course, we look at the status, the effectiveness, and the necessity of all of our prior programs and say, is this program complete? If not completed, is it still necessary? Is it effective? Should it be continued, or should it be changed, or should it be discontinued? So since the last cycle, in cycle 6, which is this 2022 to 2030 cycle, the basic changes, as you can see, there's a much larger RHNA, which all of the jurisdictions are grappling with how to meet. So that's a significant new challenge. The way that we look at how to meet the RHNA through the sites inventory is much stricter in terms of the analysis required by the state. In terms of RHNA progress, I showed that first RHNA from cycle 5 that showed that we had not built all of the units that were required. That did not have any consequences in former cycles. Now the state is going to require us to report consistently on how close we are to meeting those numbers. And if we're not on track, we may have to change our we may have to adopt new policies midstream between now and the next housing element adoption. And that's new. The state never previously required us to come back midstream and make policy changes if the housing element was not arguably effective, and now we may be required to do so. And then there's a much more stringent requirement for us to assess how to affirmatively further fair housing, which means analyzing how the fair housing implications of the county's housing conditions, development patterns, policies, and programs for equity along race and ethnicity, gender, disability status, and a range of other factors to make sure that housing is provided fairly for all segments, all sectors of the community. So that's just a brief overview of kind of the contents and requirements for the update itself. This is a very rough timeline of where we are at. We have been working on the draft of the update since last year. And we've been doing community outreach throughout the fall of last year, the spring of this year. We will have a draft of the housing element out available for public review, hopefully next month. That's our target. And that, of course, would be circulated to the council as well. And we would hope to come back for your input on it at that point. Then we would go forward with public hearings to the Planning Commission and to the Board of Supervisors. And then we have to have the housing element adopted technically by January of next year. But because the state is moving very, very slowly on housing element review, we've been advised by the Department of Housing and Community Development to back up the cycle as far as we can. We're trying to get it to them by August or September. So we're trying to be far ahead of the technical deadline because they need time to review it and certify it so that it can take effect. And so some key stages here, the draft housing element, again, ideally next month. Community council hearings will come back around in July and in August, possibly. Planning Commission hearings will start in July, Board of Supervisors hearings in July and August, and then again, submittal to HCD in August and September. And then it is on HCD's timeline when they get that review done. Ideally, would happen before the beginning of the year so that we can adopt and have a compliant housing element in place. In terms of outreach and participation, we have had multiple countywide public and stakeholder forums. We've had meetings and hearings with the various community councils. This is our first time before the Midcoast Community Council, but we have been reaching out to those and also directly to community groups. We did promote one online survey so far, and I'll show a link to that. We will have another one once the draft housing element is out to gather input on the housing element itself. We've received direct input from a variety of stakeholders, advocates, and individual residents. We've published a lot of online materials regarding the housing element. We have an email notification list that anyone who's interested can sign up for. And then, of course, we will have the various review and adoption hearings as we go forward. And this has been a very collaborative process. I just have to note the Planning and Building Department is leading this, but the Housing Department has done significant amounts of work. We've also worked with our Office of Sustainability, our Environmental Health Department, our Office of Community Affairs. We are sharing a consultant, Baird and Driscoll, with a number of other jurisdictions. And then the Association of Bay Area Governments has actually provided significant technical assistance in this cycle as well. So for additional information, here is the website for the county's housing element update. There's a link to the current housing element there as well. You can sign up for the mailing list. The survey is still up in English and Spanish, and the subsequent survey will go up there as well. And there's also some information on the multi-jurisdictional kind of effort that we're sharing across jurisdictions through Baird and Driscoll through the 21 elements, what we call the 21 elements process. We're trying to work collaboratively, share work, share best practices across jurisdictions, and that information is on this Let's Talk Housing website here. With that concludes my presentation. A little bit general and also probably a little bit opaque, but hopefully if there are any detailed questions, I can clarify further. And with that, I will give the screen back. Thank you very much.
Thank you, William. A lot there, and we will be seeing this again in another month or two with more information to back it up. Are there any clarifying questions from the council? Something you didn't understand about what he said? Dan, you have a clarifying question? Or is this board opinion?
Yes, I do. So, I understand. Thank you for your presentation. I understand, that there is a lot of pressure for housing. And I understand that, there's going to be a lot of impact on all of these decisions to the people who live in these communities. So my question is, to what degree have you been considering like tiny house situations where I understand there's quite a few up in Oregon. In fact, in the East Bay, they have them now where you can meet demands without an enormous footprint or, view blockage, height, and extremely, actually, truly affordable for most. A lot of these affordable housing, really not even affordable for a lot of people. But so my question is, to what level have you considered this direction?
We are considering that. So our prior housing element actually had a policy that committed us to exploring the tiny house kind of solution. We went a little way in that direction, but did not complete that work. So that's going to be carried over into the new housing element. We're going to revisit the potential for tiny homes and look at what are the barriers to that in this county in particular, and how can we facilitate that? The county doesn't have per se a minimum house size, so you actually can build a tiny home. It's more the infrastructure for the tiny home that tends to be the barrier in a lot of cases. So we're trying to look at, is this something we can facilitate and incentivize? Are there any regulatory barriers? Are there infrastructure constraints that we can help address? But it is on the table, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll open it to public comment of 3 minutes or less. Michelle will be keeping time and we'll let people know when they've expired their time. We'll start with Burnett, please.
Unmute this. Sorry, I just had to figure out how to unmute this. Yeah, Dan could have brought up the same question I was thinking about, was the tiny houses, because at least in Half Moon Bay, I know they had a lot of 25-foot lots, but they were pushing people, the county was pushing people to combine them into 50-foot lots, so a lot of the 25-foot lots went away. El Granada, as you know, was supposed to be a vacation, sort of a vacation community, and most of the lots were 25-foot lots. So that's what my question was, are you looking at the zoning, some zoning changes to allow the 25-foot lots to be built on, or maybe some of these 50-foot lots that have been combined to be broken up into 25-foot lots again that would accommodate a tiny house? Thank you. That's a question for Bill, or William, sorry.
Yes, should I be responding to
that was the question I had to you. Are you looking at the zoning? Because the zoning requirements in Half Moon Bay or the county, I understood, were they have to have 50 by 100-foot lots. A lot of the lots were 25-foot lots, and they pushed people to combine them into 50-foot lots. And the ones in El Granada were mostly 25-foot lots at one time, because that's how it was originally set up, as sort of a vacation community. I'm wondering if you're looking at the zoning requirements that these cities and counties are having to maybe allow some of these 50-foot lots to be broken up again, split to 25-foot lots to allow two homes to be built on, tiny homes, instead of requiring the 50-foot by 100-foot lots. That was for you, William.
So through the chair is
yes, please go ahead and respond to all that. Okay.
Some commissions run different public comment differently. So yeah, yes, we are looking at modifications to a certain extent. We are still looking at modifications to minimum lot sizes. Outside of the coastal zone, the state has also passed a law called SB 9, and it's kind of complicated, but SB 9 requires us to allow lot splits of any lot, regardless of size, as long as the resulting lots that are created are 1,200 square feet at least, and then you can build up to 2 units on each lot. That's a new law that has basically requires us to permit those developments regardless of what our other regulations are. So it doesn't take effect in the coastal zone, but outside of the coastal zone, that problem has essentially been addressed kind of directly by the state. But we do continue to look at, are minimum lot sizes too large, or should smaller lots be combined?
Thank you. Sid, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Gibson, for your excellent report. I have two questions asking if, you know, what basically about your going forward plan. In the past, on the Bayside, you had second unit amnesties, and out here, especially because things were done under the radar for many years, there are a lot of second units that are not permitted, but could be if you guys had an amnesty program and the homeowner decided to come forward and confess that they had an illegal granny unit in their property. But last time I asked this question at some county forum, you said it wasn't applicable in the coastal zone. And then my second question was, you know, well, that would help you with your RENA targets, I thought, if you could get people to legalize their already existing second units here on the coast. And then the other question about constraints, you probably know, or maybe you don't drive out here very often, but our biggest constraint is the traffic and the emergency evacuation. And there really hasn't been an element to address the evacuation in an emergency disaster. And I don't know if you're aware, but in Lake County in January this year, the Board of Supervisors approved a big new development, and the judge turned it down because they hadn't adequately addressed the fire danger, which we have here, but we also have earthquakes and tsunami issues. So I just wanted to ask if you guys are looking at that. Thank you.
Absolutely. In terms of the amnesty, so we did have an amnesty program for accessory dwelling units that allowed kind of a no-fault process where applicants who had unpermitted units could come forward and explore the possibility of legalizing them without facing code enforcement. That's on pause right now, and it's on pause simply because we're short-staffed and we don't have the staff to run it at the moment. So it's on indefinite pause, probably for about 6 months, maybe longer. It was never approved on the coast side because we would have to get approval for that program from the Coastal Commission, and the burden is fairly heavy. If it works on the Bayside, we would consider expanding it formally to the coastal zone, but that would be another step. But the point is well taken. We want to encourage as many of the unpermitted units to be permitted and to be safe and to be habitable. It would not, unfortunately, help our RENA targets because the state considers the legalization of an already existing unit as simply to be an existing unit. It doesn't count against RENA. In terms of the emergency evacuation, that's not necessarily housing element specific, but our local hazard mitigation plan does address that, and we are looking at other avenues to improve evacuation routes and kind of disaster safety broadly. That said, we're not proposing any significant policy changes that would lead to more development on the coast side in this housing element, nor do we foresee any upcoming large developments other than the Cypress development that has already been underway. So we don't foresee this housing element being something that is going to target a lot of development that would overburden resources on the coast side at this point.
Okay. Dolores, did you just drop your hand?
I did. He's partially answered my question. Thank you, Claire. The big question here on the coast, of course, has to do with infrastructure and water and climate change and wildfire risks, and the fact that roads are really inadequate to handle much development. And it's not just housing, it's also the development of more tourist amenities, and there's quite a few of those in the works. So it's like, do you look at these hand in hand? Because the issue of water is definitely a big one that's going to seem to get worse, at least from what we understand now. And the wildfire risk is very real. And our roads are, the solution is many years out. Even the plans that are in the works right now, anything significant isn't really even in the plan that looks out 30 years. So how do you balance that? I mean, you mentioned that you don't have any big plans for housing other than the Cypress Point, but even that hasn't answered the questions about these very things. So I hope that somehow there's a way that we can see that as you put these plans together. And then I guess that's the big issue, is that we're very concerned about infrastructure. We're very concerned about the fact that we're a small community. And if there are improvements to roads and this and that, a lot of the increase in traffic is driven by visitors. And a lot of the people that live here are, at least the people who have lived here for a long time, are largely perhaps low income or lower income and maybe older. And we are concerned about the prospect of having to support these improvements when we're already stressed about the impacts of our infrastructure changes, even as the size of the community is now. I hope that is considered in your assessments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to close public comment, but there's one more question from Kimberly Williams, who's having difficulty with the internet. And she wants to know, is there flexibility for the county to create more low-income housing where the need is the greatest and less market rate housing to achieve the total number of housing units? Is that clear?
Yes, that's clear. Yes, the answer is twofold. I would say one, the county's housing department funds a significant amount of affordable housing, and it tries to target that housing in multiple ways. One is, where is the infrastructure and particularly the transit to support it? So we try to put the affordable housing in communities that are urbanized and that have the development potential and the infrastructure to support it, and they're near transit and they're near other services. And those, in many cases, are the communities that have a significant amount of need. The other factor is that all multifamily housing in the county must be 20% affordable. So we have a regulation that says every market rate development must include an affordable component. So it's twofold. It's yes, directly creating affordable housing projects, but also including affordability in all market rate projects wherever they may be built.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask council members to make it whatever comments or questions they would like to make, and I'll start with Michelle.
Thank you for your presentation. I don't have any specific questions.
Okay. Jill? You're muted.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Claire. I very much enjoyed this presentation, and I cannot wait to read the draft when it comes out. And I look forward to talking more once I've read it and asking more questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Dave?
Nothing, although I will mention ADUs on the coast are ministerial, so they can go in just about anywhere. They are subject to the LCP unit limits that we have, but we haven't hit those yet. And there are a number of 25-foot lots that are built on the coast. It's only when they are adjacent lots that the planning department requires that the owner make an attempt to buy the adjacent lot. Often it's not available. So, and I'll also add that while the original lots were laid out as 25-foot lots, quite a few of the original owners actually bought 2, 3, and 4 lots. That's all.
Dan.
Yes. So I just have to say that I'm I have concerns with how this is being put out here. It starts out with pretty much, hey guys, this is a state in a bag directing us. So you get the feeling like, don't question. There's nothing, nothing you can do. Get out of the way. That's how I received the kind of message here. On the other side, I do understand, there is pressure. But now I'm a bit confused. You're coming to the Midcoast Community Council and you gave your presentation and then you said that there's not much development expected based on this to our community, but then you said, at least for now. So I'm kind of unclear as to, how this community is going to be affected, going out into the years. In regards to these demands that the state is making, and you're in the position that you feel that you have to, meet these demands.
Yeah. So to the first point, I think, we must have a housing element. It must include the contents that, the state prescribes. That's state law. That's been state law. It must show how we're going to meet this regional housing needs allocation, which has been state law. What's changed is how big that number is and some of the stringency of the requirements about how we go about the housing element. That doesn't mean that we don't have flexibility about which policies we choose. So the form and content are structured by the state, but within that, the county gets to decide where and how do we want to promote what types of development, what kind of policies do we want to adopt to do that, what do we see as the most significant needs. So it's definitely not a situation of the state, we have to do it. The state is requiring that, and every jurisdiction must do it, and there's really no wiggle room there. But that doesn't mean we don't have flexibility to choose what we think is suitable for the various communities based on the input of those communities, based on your input. In terms of development on the coast side, my point was merely that the housing element as we are drafting it now doesn't change any of the development policies on the coast side in a way that would promote significantly more development than is already allowed. So we are not proposing to densify the coast side in any way. We're not proposing to rezone any areas. We're not proposing to change any policies that would speed up or facilitate housing production in any way that's already not allowed. We will be required to identify what seem to be developable sites, but that'll be based on what is the existing set of regulations that are in place now. So that's what I mean by, it doesn't mean that some of the policies that are in the current housing element and in the updated housing element won't be applicable to the coast side. And as Dave noted, the changes to the accessory dwelling unit regulations, which we adopted during this last housing element cycle, made ADUs ministerial on the coast side, so they don't require any special permitting, and they are also allowed on substandard lots, on lots that are smaller than the minimum. So that was a change that happened that was very specific, not only to the Midcoast, but to other areas as well. But we have not identified any policies at present that would change the developability of any parcels on the coast side. That was the only point that I was making on that topic.
Okay. Thank you, William. This is very interesting, and we look forward to our next meeting with you. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
We're going to move into the longest item of the evening, which is the Corey Park Master Plan presentation. Before we start, I'd like to get an idea of how many people are going to be interested in making a public comment on this. Could you raise your hand now, just so I can get a sense of that? If you want to make public comment on, or you think you're going to want to make a public comment. Let's see.
And for those who don't know, you can raise your hand by going to the reactions tab at the bottom and then seeing a raise hand. If you're on a mobile phone, it would be under the More tab.
Okay. Thank you. You can lower your hands now. Michelle, could you set a timer for these comments for 2 minutes? I'm sorry that that's not very long, but I think it is long enough to get a point across. one of the things I want to emphasize is this is not the last time we're going to be talking about Quarry Park either. This is an opportunity for us to hear the master plan that the Parks Department has put out. And Nicholas Calderon, the director, will be answering as many questions as he can. But we're going to be talking about Quarry Park at least a couple more times in the next couple more months. So if you don't get to say everything you want to say tonight, you will get a chance. Stay tuned. So I'd like to introduce Nicholas Calderon and turn it over to him.
Excuse me. Claire, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Attempt to share my screen, I should say. Claire, if you can just let me know if you can see the presentation.
It looks fine.
Beautiful. Well, good evening. My name is, as Claire said, my name is Nicholas Calderon, and I am the director of the San Mateo County Parks Department. Tonight, I will be presenting on the Quarry Park Draft Master Plan. The Parks Department initiated development of this document back in 2017. And while we have had some delays, we have also taken some of the highest priorities that have come out of the public process and initiated implementation of those priorities in order to really enhance the delivery of services at Quarry. We will be discussing some of those implementations later. But before I start, I would like to provide a framework for what a master plan is and what a master plan is not. A master plan is a visioning document that establishes high-level goals and desires. These goals and desires often include expansion of recreational amenities and opportunities, preservation and restoration of native and sensitive resources, and mitigation of wildfire threats. A master plan is not a document that states specifically where a restoration project will occur or where a fuel break or a shaded fuel break will be constructed. The master plan informs the department of what type of action should be taken, and the department uses its professional judgment, environmental regulations, funding, and logistics to determine where, when, and how these efforts are to occur. I set the stage with this message because we have received comments from some in the community that say the master plan is inadequate because it does not propose or require a fuel break in specified locations. Likewise, we've received comments advocating for the preservation of eucalyptus trees and for us not to convert Quarry Park to a more native condition. And so for clarity purposes, the master plan identifies the need to mitigate the threat of wildfire by strategically installing fuel breaks and shaded fuel breaks that will slow the rate at which a fire spreads, reduce the chances of a ground fire becoming a canopy fire, and reduce the intensity at which a fire would burn. It also calls for improvements to the fire road system so first responders can better conduct fire containment and suppression efforts. The master plan is not the avenue to say where a fuel break or shaded fuel break is to be installed. The proper document for the San Mateo County Parks Department where that conversation would occur is our wildfire fuel management program, which will be going through a mid-cycle update, likely next year or the year after. And during that process is when we would talk about the specific location of projects. And we'll also at that time be looking at all available data, which includes the RCD's scoping project, which is currently underway. And as Sheena indicated, would be having a meeting tomorrow, and then will certainly be rolled out to the Midcoast Community Council, I believe, thereafter. So as stated before, the effort to prepare the master plan started in 2017. We're currently in the green box area of the slide, which is recommendations and implementations. The draft master plan was posted to the department's website on April 29th, and the public has until June 6th to submit comments. Feedback is being collected at workshops, via email, an online survey, and certainly through the Midcoast Community Council. Using the feedback collected at the May 10th workshop, from the surveys, emails, and tonight's meeting, and any subsequent letter that the Midcoast Community Council shares, the department will refine the master plan before presenting the final document later this year. Once the master plan has been adopted by the Board of Supervisors, the department will have to conduct a programmatic CEQA review. So Quarry Park is really a combination of 4 properties. And you see those 4 properties here It's Quarry Park, the Wicklow property, Murata Surf East, and Murata Surf West. And the county acquired these properties at different times and consolidated them to make what we now refer to as Quarry Park. As a result of these properties, we're able to provide a variety of experiences for our users, including a stroll on the coastal trail, dog walking through eucalyptus forest, beautiful views of the San Mateo County coastline and the Pacific Ocean, and many more opportunities. And while each property has individual utility as public park lands, the real opportunity presents itself when you look at them collectively as a unit. Historic uses at the properties have led to a number of issues, including erosion, wildfire threat, and overgrown non-native invasive species. Moreover, as the properties have transferred from owner to owner, the legally allowed uses have expanded and contracted. And as a result, there are several legacy issues that needed to be addressed while we were preparing the master plan. Exploring ways to increase allowed uses and amenities to meet the recreational needs and desires of the community was really a large portion of the dialogue with the public during development of the draft plan. But we also discussed improving and expanding recreational maintenance and emergency access, addressing community desire to continue off-leash dog recreation, addressing potential conflicts between hiking and mountain bike uses on trails, and examining opportunities to improve the existing trail network and linkages to neighboring parks. We also spent a lot of time talking about mitigating the threat of wildfire to entire communities, or to the entire community of El Granada, and improving drainage and reducing erosion and sediment discharge that was occurring as a result of legacy trails and poorly designed and constructed trails. One of the greatest values of a master plan is bringing the public's vision and the department's vision together for a park unit. And that's really what this document strives to do. In order to have a document that reflects the vision of the public, the department has conducted a robust multi-year public engagement process that included five community workshops, on-site walks, and multiple online surveys. Through the workshops, we collected user-specific insights into the existing park facilities and a range of potential desired new uses and amenities. We reviewed and analyzed alternative concept plans for Quarry Park and discussed possible location for new and expanded recreational amenities and prioritized future uses and facilities at Quarry Park. In total, almost 500 people participated in the process between May 2017 and April 2018. In June and July of 2017, the department also released a survey, and we released that survey so we could collect more information on a variety of topics, including desired uses, park management, and priorities for future improvements. 235 individuals responded to the survey, and we learned that dog owners valued at the time the opportunity for a dog park and the ability to hike with their four-legged friends. We also learned that while management of natural resources and adding park amenities were important, both of those receiving over 50% of votes from respondents. From a user perspective, the trails were really receiving most of the a majority of the interest and feedback and desire. As a result, establishing designated trails and connections to GGNRA land and Murata East were some of the greatest priorities for the respondents. And dog recreation amenities
Recording in progress.
So in general, what we heard was, again, dog-friendly features, wanting to be able to have a dog park and subsequently hike on trails with dogs. With dogs and without dogs, and so I use that term to be inclusive of both those groups, and then certainly preservation and restoration of natural resources. At the April 24th, 2018 community workshop, the department presented the preferred alternative up to that point. And using this preferred alternative as a guide, meeting participants discussed opportunities and constraints. Participants expressed strong support for habitat protection and wildfire threat mitigation. There was also considerable support for a pump track, and most participants felt it was important to continue to provide opportunities for dog walking and multi-use trails. As a result, the department explored expanding dog. As a result of the department exploring expanded dog access throughout the entire San Mateo County Park system, and because dog access was core to the master plan, the department put the master plan on hold until matters regarding dog access were resolved. During this time, again, we did initiate a lot of the priorities identified through this process. And in April of this year, the Board of Supervisors issued a coastal development permit that allowed us to implement the off-leash dog recreation pilot program at Quarry Park. There are 4 overarching goals of the Quarry Park Master Plan. It's to preserve the unique environmental setting of the park, to protect the environmental systems within the park, to provide new and enhanced recreational opportunities, and promote a sustainable vision for park management. And the master plan using these goals is broken into 3 sections: trail systems and signage, visitor facilities and amenities, and natural resource management. Each of these 3 categories support the higher 4 overarching goals. And the following broad ideas emerged during the Quarry Park Master Plan public engagement process. And that includes addressing deferred maintenance and inherited infrastructure challenges to protect resources, mitigate the threat of wildfire to the community of El Granada, decrease erosion and sedimentation, and improve habitat value. It also includes preserving the unique open space environment. We heard time and time again that Quarry Park is an open space, open environment park, and there was a strong desire to keep it that way and not have an overly built set of amenities and facilities, and we heard that. Ensure that the permitted uses and quality of improvements are consistent with Parks Department policies and best practices. And during the public process, no recreational improvements other than the pump track, future improvements to playgrounds, picnic areas, dog and mountain bike access to trails were desired. So we did hear that loud and clear. And what we heard from the public was that there was a desire to concentrate active uses in the already developed area of the entry meadow. So hearing that feedback is what developed the 4 goals and the 3 categories. So the first set of recommendations, which are for the trail system, and sorry, going back one step. So as we talk about recommendations, they will be within the framework of the 3 categories here: trail system and signage, visitor facilities and amenities, and natural resource management. So with trail systems and signage, the recommendation is to provide a defined trail network, which includes multi-use trails accommodating hiking, mountain biking, dog access, and equestrian use, as well as single-use trails for hiking, both with and without dogs, and single use for mountain bike riders as well. And all of this would have to be done in accordance with applicable design standards, as well as management guidelines set forth in the PWA erosion and sediment assessment. Of note, the department is also working to develop its first set of mountain bike trail standards, which would be applicable to Quarry Park. We will be rolling that out in the future for a conversation with the public. And when that does get finalized, it'll be incorporated into the master plan as an addendum. There's also strong interest in completing regional connections, specifically to Rancho Corral de Tierra, the Southridge Fire Road, and connections to Murata Serve. There's a focus on addressing sediment and erosion through routine maintenance program for roads and trails, allowing us to utilize best practices and decommissioning trails that are determined to contribute greatly to erosion and sedimentation. We also want to be able to focus on improving interpretive and wayfinding signage throughout the park. I think that's one of the biggest pieces of feedback we receive from Quarry Park users is that we need to improve the wayfinding signage, and that's something that we want to have implemented as a result of the master plan. But I think, again, I know I myself have been in Quarry Park and gotten turned around. So something that we'll be looking to implement as soon as we can when this process is over. For visitor facilities and amenities, here's the final preferred plan. And this preferred plan takes what was presented in 2018, the feedback we received at that workshop, and then some of the work that we've already started. And so you'll see in the meadow is the area for the pump track. You'll also see that there's a restroom in that area. You'll also notice that we have the expanded parking lot on the map here. And we also have the expanded play area, which one of the coolest things about the expanded play area is the ability to utilize the natural topography and environment in that area to provide really unique and cool play experiences for kids. And then you'll also see revisions to group picnic sites on there as well. So again, as requested during the public engagement process is focusing uses here and then allowing the natural environment to be sustained for a trail system. One thing that you will note is that there is no dog park proposed here. And we went through a very robust multi-year public engagement process that included representatives from Coastside Dog, the mountain bike community, the equestrian community, environmental community, and the department, as well as our Parks Commission. And it was determined that at Quarry Park, really the greatest focus needs to be on off-leash dog recreation opportunities in a park. And so you'll notice that is not on this plan. And then lastly is natural resource management. And and these were the categories for natural resource management, which erosion and sediment management, which I've spoken to, wildfire hazard reduction and habitat protection and enhancement. One of the things I do want to spend some time talking about is wildfire threat management. And as stated at the beginning of the presentation, the master plan is intended to focus on high-level goals for wildfire mitigation, while the department's wildfire fuel management program is designed to focus on specific projects. Therefore, recommendations in the master plan are strategy-based and not project-based. And that is intentional. These strategies include prioritizing creation, maintenance, and expansion of fuel breaks and shaded fuel breaks throughout the park and along fire roads to improve and protect emergency access, to ensure fire containment and suppression efforts, and to stage firefighting equipment and protect evacuation routes. Specific recommendations include continuing to work with CAL FIRE and the San Mateo RCD to remove dead, dying, and diseased eucalyptus and Monterey pines within Quarry Park, to continue to improve the fire road system. And I've mentioned Southridge. We're very excited about the project that's ongoing right now that will expand the Southridge Fire Road all the way down to Coronado, which will allow for greater access to the back of the park, which will provide new access for first responders and staff, also allow for greater access for recreationalists. So that part is certainly very exciting, but it also allows us to install a longer shaded fuel break in this portion of the park. And then maintaining shaded fuel breaks is also extremely important. So a lot of the work we're doing is focused on maintaining areas that we've already treated. And if you're not maintaining it, then what ends up happening is everything overgrows again. And all the work you did, you go back to square one. So really making sure that we are treating these areas and then maintaining them is something that you'll hear this department talk a lot about. And it's because it's such an important priority so that we can follow through on the commitment we make when we complete these projects. With all this said, though, mitigating the risk of wildfire is more than just removing eucalyptus trees. We also have to think about what comes next. When removing large segments of trees, we also need to consider what should be put in its place. Fortunately, what we've noticed is that when we remove understory vegetation, small diameter trees, and dead and dying vegetation, and we reduce that competition, native species start to grow back. These species provide greater habitat value than eucalyptus trees. They do not require as much water as eucalyptus trees or absorb as much water as eucalyptus trees. They're reflective of the natural environment, and they also sequester carbon. And so when possible, we should be eager to remove eucalyptus and allow native species to thrive. I have heard that there's concern we're not planning on replanting after removing trees. It is really important to understand that we don't plan on replanting because in Quarry Park because of natural recruitment. The ground contains a lot of seeds from both native and non-native species. And if we allow them to germinate and monitor this to support natives, remove non-natives, we're gonna see that our native species are regenerating and coming back, and we're really gonna recognize a great benefit from that. So the Quarry Park Master Plan is designed to be a 20-year vision document that provides guidance on in how the park is managed and how it's improved. As such, it includes an implementation timeframe for each recommendation: the trail system, visitor facility and amenities, and natural resource management, those three categories. And the timeframes are broken into 5 categories: in progress, ongoing, short term, which is 0 to 5 years, midterm, which is 5 to 10, and then long term, which is 10 to 20. There's a lot of details in the master plan on this, and I certainly would encourage everyone to take a look at it. These details are laid out on pages 91, 92, and 93. So I spoke earlier about implementation. And again, we have spent the last couple of years implementing a lot of priorities, including the off-leash dog recreation pilot program. We're in process for developing the first draft of the mountain bike trail design standards, and we are preparing our detailed designs and conducting our CEQA reviews, and we'll be receiving our permits for the South Ridge Fire Road hopefully soon. And then for visitor facilities and amenities, if you've been out to Quarry Park lately, you've certainly seen that the pump track is under construction. We are seeking approval for the restroom and the parking lot expansion. And as soon as we get those, we'll be able to proceed with that. And then natural resource management, we have a routine maintenance manual or program that is a foundation for how we conduct a lot of restoration and management work. And we are working with PWA and looking at the assessment to figure out how we're going to address erosion and sedimentation, but we've started that process. And we've done a lot of wildfire fuel mitigation work so far, and I'll discuss that here in a couple minutes. So briefly, for those who may not be aware, again, in April, the Board of Supervisors issued a coastal development permit that launched our off-leash dog recreation pilot program. And the trails shown in green here are trails that are available to off-leash dog recreation, while the orange trails are on leash. Dogs are not allowed in the reservoir or the playground, but you can see that off-leash dogs are really allowed in most of Quarry Park. And so we are now about a month into the pilot program. This will be a 12-month pilot program. We are conducting routine monitoring every week. And every other month, we compile that information and we put that on our website. So the public can follow along with how the progress of the pilot program is going. But so far, we've been very pleased with the outcome of the pilot program. Again, we're 1 month in, but very pleased so far. Again, we have also initiated the Southridge Fire Road or Trail project, and this was a priority for CAL FIRE. We worked a lot with them on this process. We are at 90% designs, and our CEQA review is underway. We are working with our Department of Public Works, who will ensure implementation of this fire road and ensure that this road is constructed as designed to provide both safety for all users as well as first responders. And again, mountain bike trail standards is a document that we're going to be releasing here shortly. But very excited to have an opportunity to explore this conversation with the mountain bike community. And I'm a firm believer that as the needs of the public evolve, we as a department have to be willing to grow with that. And I think mountain biking is a great example of that. I think the pump track is a great example of that. And we really look forward to working with the community on all these endeavors going forward. Again, the pump track is under construction, and it should be done really within the next 60 days, at which point we look forward to having a ribbon cutting and opening this up to the kids, which will be perfect for summer vacation. I do want to take a minute right now to acknowledge the Granada Community Services District, as well as the San Mateo County Parks Foundation, both of which who have contributed funding for this really important community resource and asset. So I do want to thank both of those organizations. I know there's going to be a lot of questions about fire, so I did want to take a minute to acknowledge some of the work we are doing. So in February 2021, the Board of Supervisors approved the Parks Department's Wildfire Fuel Management Program. Of the 32 projects, 3 are located in Quarry Park, projects 2, 8, and 16. And collectively, these projects are about 188 acres. On this map, you'll see a purple highlighted area, which represents a shaded fuel break that will be installed along fire roads throughout Quarry Park. As you can see, this strategic shaded fuel break will traverse from Coronado along the perimeter of the park to Dolphin. It will also traverse Middle Ridge Fire Road, as well as some of the areas lower in the park. And this is a project that we are working on with the San Mateo RCD with funding from the State Coastal Conservancy. And the project will allow Southridge Fire Road, Dolphin Fire Road, and Middle Ridge Fire Road to serve as an area that can disturb fire behavior and keep a ground fire on the ground, preserve emergency access, and support first responders in conducting fire containment and suppression activities. Please note, though, that the segment of Southridge that connects Coronado to the top of the park is the section that I was just talking about that we're going through design. So that's not currently constructed. That the hope is to have that constructed in 2023, at which point that shaded fuel break would be completed. The orange color highlight is the remainder of Project 16. So the purple and the green is Project 16, as is the orange area. And that orange area, that portion of the project would be to install a shaded fuel break along the swath of eucalyptus near El Granada Boulevard. So this work would reduce the density of hazardous vegetation and break the vertical and horizontal continuity of fuels, which contributes to the spread and intensity of fire. I have heard from several people that there's a concern that there is no work being done in this swath, and I just wanted to take a second to acknowledge that this area has been included in the Wildfire Fuel Management Program since its adoption in February 2021. And while we don't have funding to complete that work right now, a shaded fuel break in that area is part of our overall effort for El Granada and Quarry Park. At the bottom of the park, you'll see a blue highlighted area, and that's Project 8 from our Wildfire Fuel Management Program. And this would be a full fuel break along the area highlighted in blue, and then the yellow, which you see is from the CAL FIRE project completed in 2019. And as part of the arrangement, we are responsible for maintaining that area. So I wanted to highlight all of these different projects and just be able to show the work that has been done, that is underway, and that is part of our wildfire fuel management program. Just to kind of bring it back to earlier in the meeting, Sheena was talking about the project that's going to start on the 6th of next month, and that is the purple area. So, collectively, these projects will mitigate the risk of wildfire to the community of El Granada, and these projects will reduce the amount of fuel present in the park, preserve fire road and access points for first responders, and they're designed to keep a ground fire on the ground. And we have, as both a Parks Department and as a county, as an organization, committed more financial resources to El Granada and mitigating the risk of wildfire to El Granada than any other area in the county. And so that's something that we are proud of, because we hear the concerns that residents have, and we acknowledge those concerns, and we are working hard to mitigate that risk. And the fact that we are putting as much money and resources into completing these projects as we are. And when you look at this map, you can see that work is really being done throughout Quarry Park. We're very proud of that. But certainly we also acknowledge that the RCD is going to be completing their scoping project. And when that's done, we will take a look at that information. And as we go through a mid-cycle update for our wildfire fuel management program, that is one of the pieces of information that we will be reviewing and acknowledging. So I just did want to call that out, but also take a second to recognize the concerns and the fears that we've heard, and let you know that we're not ignoring those and that we do hear you on that. So next steps, again, June 6th is the date in which online comments can be submitted. There's the link on the slide here. We will then be taking that information, refining the master plan, bringing that master plan to the Board of Supervisors for adoption, initiating a CEQA review process at a programmatic level, and then bringing all that back to the board for final adoption. So we are looking at early to mid 2023. So with that said, that's my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Me got off mute. Thank you, Nicholas, for your presentation. We will not have a letter or any comments formally from the council tonight. We are interested in public comment. Michelle, will you be timing this for us, please?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thanks. We'll start with Susan Casey, please.
Hi, thank you. The Parks Department does not have a holistic plan nor strategy for Quarry Park, which is evident as they are ignoring and disregarding nearly the entire western half of Quarry Park. The Parks Department has projects defined for the eastern, the southern, and the northern portions. The western perimeter of Quarry Park only has a rust highlight on a map without a definition, nor how many acres, nor the rank ID. When I asked about this at the May 10th Master Plan Zoom meeting, Parks Director Calderon did not answer the question, but stated that's actually not a master plan question, and that it is part of the Department's Wildfire Fuel Management Program. The Wildfire Fuel Management Plan directly feeds into the master plan, and the master plan on pages 99 through 105 is quite detailed regarding the other Quarry Park projects taken directly from the Wildfire Fuel Management Plan. Since last year's April 14th, 2021 MCC meeting, the Parks Department has continued to delay correctly defining the western perimeter in their criteria prioritization. If the Parks Department were to correct these mistakes and recognize the presence of private residents as a rating of 10 instead of the current 0, the Western Perimeter would be recognized as one of the top priority projects in all of San Mateo County. El Granado residents' lives are not being valued in the same manner as the other 32 projects in the San Mateo County Park System. These mistakes must be corrected prior to publishing the Quarry Park Master Plan. So my question is, why is one of the highest priority projects in the San Mateo County Park System, the Quarry Park Western Perimeter, not being defined nor properly ranked by the Parks Department for inclusion in the master plan as the other projects were over a year ago? Thank you for this opportunity to talk.
Nicholas, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, Claire, sorry. I guess I have the same question Will had earlier. Is the hope to respond one at a time?
Yes, I think that would probably be most useful.
Okay. Yeah. So looking, again, I do maintain that the specific question that is asked is really more towards the wildfire fuel management program. With that said, I am happy to, again, pull up the image. Claire, if you can just let me know when you can see my screen.
It's there.
So if you look at this area, right, this is the western portion of Quarry Park that the speaker was referring to. And as you can tell, it is included in Project 16. So it is included in the Wildfire Fuel Management Program. Its scope is part of the same scope Project 16 is, which is the installation of a shaded fuel break. So I think there's probably going to be somewhat of a disagreement with regards to whether this area is included in the Wildfire Fuel Management Program. Again, if you look at the Wildfire Fuel Management Program, go to Project 16 and you'll see that this area is in fact included in the program. This area is on our project list. And so, that's just the situation. It's on the list. It's in the program. So I would disagree that we're ignoring this area or that we're ignoring people's safety.
Okay, Melinda McNaughton.
Excuse me, may I just say one thing in response to that?
Go ahead.
Thank you. It's labeled Project 16 because that's the priority of it. It's the rank ID is Project 16, and Project 16 has the presence of private residents labeled as 0, maybe meaning not accounting for any residents adjacent to that project, where obviously there's many residents along El Granado Boulevard, so it's not being accurately identified as a priority. It also doesn't have any acres associated with it or published in any way. So when I say it's undefined and not accurately included in Project 16, that's what I mean. It's not accounting for the lives along El Granado Boulevard and giving it the proper priority. Thank you.
So Claire, I do need to clarify that's actually an inaccurate statement. So Project 16 accounts for 100 acres in Quarry Park. That swath along El Granado Boulevard is part of that 100 acres. So that project is not broken out into multiple defined sub-projects. It is one project that, for a variety of reasons, has had to be implemented in multiple phases. However, that area along the western portion of Quarry Park that the speaker is speaking of is included in the Wildfire Fuel Management Program. It is included in Project 16. It is part of the 100 acres, and its scope is well defined within the program, which is the installation of a shaded fuel break. So, I think we'll probably just end up disagreeing on this.
Well, I just have a little bit of confusion about that, Nicholas, and because I thought that the Coastal Conservancy project was, and that did not include that rust area along El Granado Boulevard. That Coastal Conservancy project included 100 acres for that grant And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I thought that coastal conservancy was 100 acres and that did not include that rust area. So that's where my confusion lies.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and work with staff to get the specifics of specific how many acres are included in the conservancy project. With that said, again, and I know we've had this conversation numerous times, the El Granada, what's referred to as the El Granada Swath, which is on the western perimeter of Quarry Park, is included in Project 16, is included in the Wildfire Fuel Management Program, and its scope is defined as Project 16's scope is defined.
Yeah, I'd like to ask that maybe the two of you try to clarify this offline and perhaps come back and know what the upshot was. Perhaps we should just go ahead and take public comment, and Nicholas, and have you answer, take notes and answer after the public comment, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay. Yeah, no, that works, Claire.
Okay. Matt, go ahead, please.
Thanks. Yeah, I came in late, so I didn't get the whole presentation, but I did see the one that you did last time, Nick, and thank you for that. I just wanted to clarify, did you, when you were considering considered a Frisbee golf course there? I was just curious if you could share the findings that you had for that proposed project and why it is or is not going forward. Thanks.
Okay. So he'll answer that after everybody asks their question. Thank you. All right. Burnett.
Okay, I get this thing to unmute. Okay, I'm one of the supporters of the feedback that was sent to the Parks Department and Council by email on May 23rd. That feedback focuses on three critical issues: drainage runoff, flood risk from the dam and reservoir, and street parking and traffic. Let's look at drainage runoff. A photo showing park drainage runoff onto Santa Maria at the park's entrance was repeatedly used in public meetings. Meeting 5 captioned it, "Address drainage in the street," as a needed action. And PWA used the same photo as photo 35 within its caption, stated the majority of the park's drainage leaves the park at that location onto residential streets. Over 77% of respondents to an online survey supported management for improved drainage. Surely the master plan would discuss it, as well as its impact on residents, including plans for mitigation. Nope, it did not. Well, let's look at the 73 corrective actions for erosion and sediment control proposed by PWA and accepted for implementation. Let's see how they will impact park drainage runoff and what mitigation plans they have. Again, not discussed in the master plan, although the corrective work has the potential to dump a lot more water onto the residential streets, particularly Santa Maria, where residents are already sandbagging to protect their property. I hope you got a chance to look at the short video that was sent in. It gives you a sense of what we put up with each year. How about the reservoir and dam? It has the potential of flash flood over 750,000 gallons of water onto the surrounding neighbors from an earthquake. Let's see what type of warning system will be used, what the evacuation route will be, what structural improvements are planned to strengthen the dam from earthquakes. Didn't see it in the master plan. Street parking and traffic. The executive summary to the master plan highlights key issues raised during the public outreach process, one of which was protection of neighbors from potential impacts of use intensification, particularly overflow parking. Let's see how the plan manages and reduces overflow parking, as well as impacts on surrounding traffic, particularly from the expanded uses plan for the park. Still didn't see it. Adding a few more parking spaces to the existing. Okay, adding to the few more parking spaces to the existing parking lot ain't going to do it. I appreciate all the hard work you've done, but the master plan has some big holes in it that must be addressed. Those are major concerns, not little insignificant issues. Thank you.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Nick, I want to thank you for your thoughtful presentation and the efforts of your team. I've got a very simple question. I represent myself, but I know there are others in El Granada who care about trees. And on the one hand, we want proper management, we want fire safety, we want to remove whatever it is that endangers us. On the other hand, the experience of trees in that park is important to a lot of people. And I understand what you said about letting nature sort of grow when you cut down the trees. But I'm curious whether you've received input from people that people really value trees. That's part of the experience. And if so, how are allowing some trees to be part of the master plan?
Okay, thank you, Arya. JPS, go ahead, please.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I signed in that way. This is Jane. Thank you for letting us have input on this master plan. I want to talk first about the language that's used in the plan. I see that protect environmental systems is one of the terms used, protect habitat is another. And when I went to the last meeting, and the whole idea of changing a forest into a chaparral environment with a few shaded fuel breaks is a very, very extreme change. And when I explain this to people, they get very upset because they're attached to the park as a forested place. And I think when I last listened to the remedy here, which is to take the trees down and let whatever comes up will be native. Some of that native will be poison oak and blackberries that will either just stay there and, the ticks will love the chaparral. But are we going to spray that? Or, what kind of maintenance does the chaparral environment require? I had read it needs to be burned every 30 years to germinate properly, but I'm not a scientist. I don't know that. But I'm very concerned when I read things like replace non-natives with natives. People are envisioning trees. And my understanding is when you say native, you're only talking about coastal natives. So a Monterey pine is now considered a non-native tree. And as far as protecting the habitat, we have raptors, we have owls, hawks, and bats. And when those start swarming and getting displaced, I can guarantee you that the coastal neighbors will get extremely upset. On Nextdoor, the photographs are the most popular part of Nextdoor. So I really think that even though this plan is supposed to be far down the road and public input for the most part should have been, whether we want dogs in the park or not, I think a major change to the environment there is so significant that people need a chance to say yes or no on whether they want the whole thing to be a chaparral park. So my last comment.
We have to wrap it up.
Okay, so my last comment is part of it to replace the trees. I think the Coastal Conservancy had a great model. The county could ask for a certain kind of tree to be grown in our nurseries, and people could pay for a tree and the labor to put it in. So I think replacement trees, there's creative solutions. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jane. Sid, go ahead.
Thank you, Nicholas. I did attend when you rolled this out at the Parks Commission meeting earlier in May, and you said that unlike the flood park that's county spent about $16 million on, this plan doesn't have any budget as yet. Is that correct still, or did you get one yet? And then the other thing I was going to ask is I was in Quarry Park somewhat recently and noticed that they were moving a whole bunch of dirt around for the pump track, but they didn't sprinkle it down afterwards, and there was a lot of dust. And I was just wondering, I don't know if the county is exempt from that, but are they going to start, keeping down the dust? Because when I did go to Quarry Park that day, I noticed all the sandbags on Santa Maria, so that really should be tried to be addressed. And I think those are my biggest comments for now. I'll send, if you can type the link into the chat, it would be helpful for the feedback, because we can't copy anything that's in your PowerPoint presentation from Zoom. Thanks. And maybe you can answer that other question. What did you say?
It's already in the chat.
Oh, good. I was watching the presentation, not the chat. Thank you. Nicholas, can you respond?
He will respond after everybody has said something.
Okay, thanks.
Melinda, go ahead.
Hi, Claire. Thank you so much. I understand what the park is doing with the wildfire mitigation, and that makes sense with the fire breaks and the shaded fuel breaks. And hopefully, especially that 100 acres is going to happen on the west end to protect the homes on El Granada Boulevard. But my confusion and concern is about the rest of the trees. And I was at the May 10th meeting, and it sounded like the end goal over 20 years, 30 years is eucalyptus eradication, removing invasives, and letting the scrubland, coastal scrub grow back. I don't have anything against natives. I think they're very important to encourage native animals and pollinators. However, I also think it's very important that we still have lots of trees in the park. Of course, not in the shaded field break and field break areas, but why not get trees in there to create tree canopy shade? I know that coastal scrub and other smaller plants do sequester carbon. All plants sequester carbon, but I know that trees sequester the most carbon. And we are talking about a type of very slow deforestation here during climate crisis, and we need trees for carbon capture. So that's my biggest concern right now. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. There's 3 more people speaking for public comment, and then we'll move on to the council. Let's go to Ann Mangold, please.
Hi. This is actually Keith Mangold, not Ann Mangold. But can you hear me?
Yes, you're coming in fine.
I think back in February, Jonathan Cox, our deputy fire chief here for CAL FIRE, made a quote that was in the Half Moon Bay Review that I think is very important in this master plan. He said, "I won't lie to you that my biggest fear is a fire in Montero or in El Granada." Cox said, "It's up there with Burlingame and Emerald Hills as the highest concern, especially with offshore wind events. But I think we have an opportunity to take proactive action, and this is very important, in the 95% of the time we're not dealing with extreme weather conditions. In other words, we're in great shape as long as we're not in the middle of a red flag Diablo wind day, which happens up to 12 times a year, when Quarry Park eucalyptus grove ignites. In that situation, we would have virtually the same fire that Oakland Hills had. We don't have as many homes. We have more eucalyptus trees. And I think we have fewer escape routes. So the bottom line is, looking at the Oakland Hills fire, we would have somewhere between half an hour and an hour to evacuate. And personally, I think if 6,000 people are trying to get out of El Granada on the Highway 1 at the same time, there are a whole lot of people that aren't going to make it. And I think that this goes back to one of the major premises here, and that is that the shaded fuel breaks are actually going to do anything during a Diablo wind event. CAL FIRE data says they don't. I mean, they speak very specifically in their literature that you don't use shaded fuel breaks when you have high wind events. And that 5% that Cox is talking about is the wind event that all of us in El Granada should be most concerned about. We need fuel breaks. We don't need fuel. I mean, it's good in some places. Yeah, at the south end, you could probably get in the park because the wind's going to be coming from the east-northeast 100% of the time.
Please finish your comment.
So, I think the strategy needs to go back and look at the existing on-the-ground conditions, because you can't control terrain, weather. The only thing you control is fuel. And the way things are going right now, that's not being addressed. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Danny. I'm sorry, Keith. We'll have Danny next and then Fran.
Thank you much. Just a couple of different disparate points, all on the same theme. We had the comment that changing this large forest into chaparral consists of an extreme change. I think we can hold a mirror up to that statement and say, was it an extreme change 100 years ago to move this community from chaparral to forest? Yes, that was an extreme change. And now we're in an extreme amount of fire danger because of it. While many people in the community would like to see huge clear cuts of eucalyptus, even if we had a consensus to do that, I don't think the county would give the Parks Department enough money to do that. So on balance, in a spirit of compromise, I think we can approach the safety of the community and accommodate people's need for trees by establishing a clear contiguous fuel break between Quarry Park and residential El Granada, and simply making it contiguous and large enough in the near term, and then committing to increasing it by perhaps a nominal 50 feet per year until it gets to a reasonably safe amount. Project 16, Nicholas, thank you for talking about it. We can talk about how big it is, but if we get back to Project 16, allowing for no more than a shaded fuel break between El Granada and the Quarry Park eucalyptus stand, like Keith said, it's not realistically protective. It is not what the community needs, and I think we absolutely need to hold up the Quarry County Park Master Plan until we get a specific contiguous fuel break of significant width committed to in the region that is currently slated for Project 16. And that would be my pointed question for Nicholas is as written, is there nothing more than we can expect but perhaps a 20-foot road called a shaded fuel break between Quarry Park and some portions of residential El Granada? If so, that's just not enough. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Fran is the last person in public comment. If there's anyone else that still has thoughts, please put them in the chat. Go ahead.
I had my hand raised this whole time and for some reason wasn't recognized as having it raised. So I'd really like to make my comment if possible.
I have a comment as well.
You're not in the public. We'll get to you in a little bit, Dan. Was there a technical problem that it wasn't showing up?
No, and in fact, I wrote you specifically and said I plan to make a comment and I'm raising my hand at the start of the meeting.
Yeah, you did, and I didn't see you raise your hand, but okay, we'll add you on. Let Fran go first, and then we'll finish with Karen. Fran?
Hi, can you hear me?
Barely.
Oh, really? Let me turn my mic up. Can you hear me now? Is that better?
This is better.
All right, thank you. Well, thanks for holding this. Thank you, Nicholas, for coming in and doing this. I just have a bunch of questions. I'm just as concerned. I live in the lower part of El Granada, and we're all just as concerned about a fire fuel break as the Highland. So I want to know when that's going to be done. I guess it's that blue area. It's the border between the forest and the community, and we're all very close. So it needs to be done as soon as possible. I also wondered about, I agree with Keith Mangold, we need an escape route. Is there another route being planned up in the Highlands so they can escape up there instead of everybody trying to get on Highway 1? And the playground area, I'm very concerned about that. I heard you say you're going to enlarge the playground area. I hope you're not planning to put a lot of mechanical things in there. It just needs to be a park for kids to play in and people to picnic in and hold parties and that kind of thing. And you say there's no place for a dog park, but that's where people keep bringing their dogs to play in. And if the dogs take over, they're going to ruin it for people. So we do need to establish a dog park. They come every day there and play in that park with the dogs. So I'm hoping you'll establish a dog park in a different area of here. I suggested Marana Surf East at one time. I hope you can consider that. And what else? And of course, you have to put signs up and enforce them that no dogs in the playground area. So I want to know.
In a few minutes, please finish your comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fran. Okay, Karen, please go ahead.
Thank you, and apologies for the whatever the glitch was. Thanks, Claire. I appreciate the work that Nick and Hannah have presented here tonight. I just wanted to echo what Danny said, is that I'm concerned, one, that the schedule for the approval of the long-term plan is not allowing enough time and consideration for whatever the recommendations are coming from the RCD consultants who have been investigating and reporting on fire danger in El Granada. And then secondly, it does not yet sufficiently address the looming fire danger from the neglected forest of eucalyptus on our doorsteps. And I understand Nick's done the best he can in terms of, trying to build shaded fuel breaks primarily within the park rather than along the perimeter, along the residential areas. But as Danny and Keith both mentioned, shaded fuel breaks do not work on red flag El Diablo winds from the northeast. They just don't work. And so I'm concerned that enough sections of forest are not planned or funded to be removed to make a difference. And it's not funded, it's not in the plan. And this is a long-term plan. So I'm extremely concerned about that. There's a lot of information about building a pump track, maintaining picnic areas, which is great. But if all our homes are incinerating, none of that really matters. I'd really like a greater focus on safety and not just honestly naively relying on these shaded fuel breaks running through the park to take care of everything. So I appreciate all the effort. I appreciate the effort to understand, but we ask again, and even more urgently, for the county, not just the Parks Department, to accept and act on their responsibility for reducing the danger from the forest within our community. This is not just a Parks Department issue. The county itself needs to come to the table and get the funding to take care of this. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Karen. Nicholas, could you maybe take, there are lots and lots of questions. I don't think you're going to be able to do them all justice tonight, but if you could take maybe 10 minutes and see what you can address, I'd appreciate it. And then the council has comments to make as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a series of notes here. So with regards to Frisbee golf, that was removed from the plan when we looked at the strong desire to keep Quarry Park a rural environment and a native environment. And when we looked at some of the amenities we discussed that include Frisbee golf, pickleball, bocce, they just didn't fit that character. And in fact, I recently was hearing a story about one of our neighboring agencies who had a similar situation to us and moved forward with that course, and it actually ended up changing the entire character of the park. So we felt that not proceeding with certain facilities and amenities like Frisbee golf and pickleball and bocce was the right decision here. With regards to drainage and runoff impacting Santa Maria, Burnett, I believe you were speaking to that. So that's something that we're engaging with our Department of Public Works on and trying to better understand. I don't have an answer for you on that right now, but I do hear you. I did see your comment, and it's something that I'm working with our Public Works Department, who maintains the roadway system in El Granada, to understand what they're seeing from a bigger picture throughout El Granada. So I don't have a clear answer on that, but we do understand that it's a problem, and we are reaching out to the appropriate people. there was also mention about the reservoir, and I'll go back and double check, but I believe that we did a seismic investigation into the dam, and that was included in the master plan. But I'll go back and double check that. But my understanding was that we did that investigation and we were comfortable with the outcome of that. But we've also included in the master plan a way to reduce the water level and therefore reduce the pressure that's being put on that dam as a project. So we recognize what comes with that earthen dam and that reservoir, and are working to address relieving some of that pressure. As far as parking is concerned, we are increasing parking. I did come to the Midcoast Community Council last year and actually proposed an additional parking lot, and to say that I was shot down would frankly probably be an understatement. I believe someone played the Counting Crows, one of their songs that talks about tearing down paradise and paving a parking lot. So we did put out additional opportunities, and we tried to build. I see Michelle laughing, she remembers that. But I did try to put forward additional parking opportunities, and again was very clearly shot down on that. And so we are working within the parameters that we have to add more parking. With that said, we will monitor the situation and see what further opportunities we can find on site to create more parking. I think one of the most interesting conversations that have occurred tonight is the conversation between the concepts of preservation of some of the trees and the idea of removing all of the trees. And I will say, and I believe it was Danny who said, is the county really going to remove every eucalyptus tree, and at what cost would that come financially? I believe Rich Sampson from CAL FIRE put that somewhere in the tune of $100 to $200 million. So do I see that happening? I don't see that happening in the foreseeable future. I do see us focusing on strategic projects that can mitigate the risk of wildfire to the community of El Granada, continuing the work that we have started, and allowing native species to grow back. I hear the concern, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to go through my notes as I'm talking here, that Quarry Park is a forested environment, recognizing that it is a non-native forest environment. But when we manage parks for natural resource purposes, we have to not just look at the aesthetics, but we also have to think about, what provides the greatest habitat value. We have to look at certainly going forward, what performs the best in the evolving climate that we have. And we also have to look at what the impacts of any decision would be. And so without going through without having a project in front of us and going through a very specific project, I can't tell you what the impacts of some of those eucalyptus removals would be, but I don't think that the department is proposing to clear cut Quarry Park in the near term future. That's just not a feasible. That's not a feasible goal to strive for. But what is a feasible goal to strive for is strategic removal of a lot of the understory and hazard trees that are present in the park. And let's try and allow for those native species to thrive. So, I do think it's going to end up being kind of a combination. It's going to be a balance between those who don't want change and those who want to see all the eucalyptus removed. There was a question about money for implementation and trying to compare it to Flood Park. I think that's really we're talking apples and oranges. What I can tell you is that the county has put several $1 million into Quarry Park recently, and we'll have to look when the plan eventually gets adopted and finalized. We'll have to look at what remains on the priority lists But again, we've put several $1 million into Quarry Park recently between fuel reduction and new amenities. So we're very proud of that, and don't think that that is kind of a figure to kind of just brush off. Again, several $1 million. There's a lot. I guess the closing thing I will say. Well, and Fran asked about playground expansion. I can't answer the specifics about that because, again, as I started with the presentation, the master plan is this high-level vision document, and then as we go to implement projects, we have to do a more detailed engagement process. So yes, the master plan identifies a need to expand the playground, but when that time comes, we'll go back out to the community and say, what is it that you want to envision? And so while I appreciate certainly the feedback you provided tonight, Fran, right? I think we don't have a project in front of us. We don't have the money for it right now. But when we do, we want to go out and we want to talk to the kids and the families and the parents and say, hey, what is it that is missing from the current playground? And what are you looking for to have that experience? And we're going to let that design process really guide what the project is. And then, the last thing is the idea that the master plan should be very clear in where certain things are going to be, right? Where certain fuel breaks are going to be, where certain shaded fuel breaks are going to be. Again, the master plan is a strategy-based document, not a strategy-specific document, not a project-specific document. And for that reason, I don't see the master plan as appropriate for that. That is what our wildfire fuel management program is for. With that said, we are part of the RCD scoping project. We will be part of those conversations. We will be able to see the information that comes out of that. And that information will certainly feed the revision to the wildfire fuel management program. But again, the master plan should not be viewed as a document that says you're going to put a fuel break here, you're going to put a shaded fuel break here, you're going to put a fire road here. What it really should be, what we really should be doing is focusing those conversations on the department's wildfire fuel management program, which again, we'll be going through a mid-cycle update and will give us a chance to then incorporate the findings of the RCD scoping project.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Yeah, Claire, I tried to hit as much as I could.
You got a lot of it. Before we move to the council, let me ask you, if we decide to write a letter of comment on the master plan, can you accept that after June 1st? I mean, June 6th?
Yeah, so look, how much longer after are we talking?
We don't have another meeting for another 2-3 till after June 6th.
Yeah, I think for that reason, if you can do it the closest meeting to the June 6th date, the Midcoast Community Council is a municipal advisory council that represents the community, and I do want to make sure that we have something from the MCC, and so we would be happy to give the MCC specifically an extension on that, provided that it's not a 2-month extension.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go to the council for hopefully brief comments. One of the things I would like you to comment on is whether we should consider writing a letter of comment on the master plan. Jill, we'll start with you, please.
Thank you, Nicholas, for coming and giving such a comprehensive informational presentation. I very much enjoyed it. And at this time, I don't have any questions. I also appreciate all the public comments, talking about forests and converting from eucalyptus to other things. I think we have a very intelligent community, and it's nice to know that everyone is participating and thinking about these things. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jill. Dan?
Yeah, thank you, Nicholas. I agree with many of the previous speakers saying that we absolutely need more done at the park. Now, clearly more trees need to be removed, and not all trees, Nicholas, not all the trees, but definitely more trees. Now, cost always becomes the problem. This is why this is the reason you've repeatedly used as that you can't do what we're asking you to do, is costs. So costs need to be controlled clearly. One way to control, and the other thing is, you can remember we had a walk through the park. It was several months ago, maybe a year ago. I can't remember exactly. We both witnessed, I'm certain that you remember, we both witnessed the stress that forest was taking. Those trees looked like they were dying. Lack of water and wind. So one way to control costs and get more trees down would be to follow the Golden Gate Park model, which they chip everything that makes sense, keep it on site to compost, and then reuse later to suppress invasive plants, to make access paths that are drastically, terribly needed, and more important, to hold moisture in the ground. This would solve a lot of the drainage problems, I believe, or at least help it. And it would save an enormous expenditure from trucking good material out, and then again paying for trucking good material back in when you need it. Golden Gate Park uses aged horse manure to mix with the wood chips to speed up the composting process. Talked to a lot of people. I know this can be done. And I know that there's definitely space in the park that you could find. So, I would really like to, I threw this out your way. I don't think you really gave a response, but you've had many months time to think about it, but it's all about controlling costs. And this is something that makes sense, reduces the CO2, and of the unnecessary trucking, and it would save valuable material for the park to use for the numerous reasons. So can you comment on that, Nicholas, please?
Let me let him comment after we finish talking, going around the council. Dave?
Not happy with that, Claire.
I'm sorry.
I'm really not happy. Dave? You're just dicing everything up and you're making it hard for everybody to communicate.
Dave?
I don't think I have anything to say. I am glad that the Quarry Park master plan process is finally closing in. And as Nicholas noted, it's a year before this is adopted, if then. So this will go to the Planning Commission, it'll go to the Board of Supervisors, it'll go to the Parks Commission. People have plenty of chances to speak up. But as I've said all through this process, and Nicholas started off saying, this is it's a blueprint for what could happen. It's not details. So all of you who are worried about details, hold off until the projects happen. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Michelle?
Yeah, thank you, Nicholas, for coming tonight. A lot of progress here. It's really great to see some things come to fruition, like the pump track. I remember that meeting in, I think, early 2020. And it didn't happen as quickly as possible, but I think we have COVID to blame in part for that. And so it's good to see that finally happening. And I really like the proposal to expand the playground. I mean, the playground that's there is great, but it is a little bit small, especially compared to some of the others in the area. So it would be really nice to do the work to expand that. In terms of the wildfire, it's nice to see the shaded fuel breaks going in. I would echo some of the concerns of members of the public that that's not going to be enough and more needs to be done. But I do support kind of waiting for the results of the El Granada Wildfire Resiliency Scoping Project to see really what the data shows us in terms of what is going to be the most cost-effective way to reduce the wildfire risk in Quarry Park and El Granada. And in terms of writing a letter, I guess my only I would be in support of considering this at our next meeting, which is June 8th. My only question is that the right time to comment, or considering that this is going to be a year-long process, will there be other opportunities to comment as the MCC?
Okay, thank you. I don't have any specific comments. I think I'll give it back to Nicholas for any final remarks. I appreciate this has been really difficult. That there's a lot of material, and there's no way to exhaust all of it tonight. But it doesn't need to be exhausted tonight. We will come back. Nicholas, if you have any closing comments.
Yeah, Claire, thank you so much. So I guess there are two questions on the table, and then I'll make some closing remarks. Dan, you'll recall, so I agree. I did see a lot of stress on our site visit. You'll also recall on that day, we watched my staff removing eucalyptus trees and chipping them on site. So the idea of chipping on site and spreading it for different purposes on site is something that we currently do. I will admit we do not mix it with horse manure. That is not a strategy we use, but we do chip what we cut. We do chip it on site and spread it and use it for a variety of reasons. So Dan, that is something we already do and have been doing for a very long time. So please take comfort in knowing that that is already happening. Michelle, with regards to the question of when is the right time, I think providing feedback now will help us in the refinement process. And then I would certainly also recommend, probably commenting on the final as well. I think Dave's remarks were correct, right? Which is that this is the high-level vision document, not the project-specific document. And so, keeping that in mind as any letter it would be drafted. My closing remark is really just this. The Parks Department, the County of San Mateo, we hear the concern that residents have, and we're not ignoring that. We're not dismissing that. That's something that we hear. And I truly believe that 188 acres in our wildfire fuel management program dedicated to Quarry Park and, over $1 million in work being done with RCD in Quarry Park starting here in the coming weeks, as well as the work that we've done internally at the staff level and creating a new segment of a fire road. These are all our commitments. We recognize that it takes more than that. Our plan is not to stop at the conclusion of the first 5 years of the wildfire fuel management program. It takes an ongoing commitment to both do more and maintain what you've treated. And so we certainly understand that, and we are working to do that at Quarry Park. We're also working to do that throughout the rest of the San Mateo County Park system. But again, we are committed to taking all the appropriate and correct actions to mitigate that risk. And we look forward to seeing the outcome and the results of the RCD's scoping project to help inform future revisions to our wildfire fuel management program. So very appreciative of the opportunity to speak with you all tonight, to share the draft master plan and to field your questions. And there's some follow-up that we have to do, and we're certainly going to do that. And then I look forward to seeing all of your comments via survey or email, and always happy to have any conversations that anyone would like to have. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I'd like
and
to
Claire, by the way, I think I know these are always tough meetings, but I think you've done a really good job running this meeting. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for that. I'd like to ask the council for your opinion at this point. We have two more items on the regular agenda. They're both letters. They're both to the point. I don't think they're controversial, but they might be. One is on the lead fuel for the airport, a response to a letter that was written to us. And the other is a letter supporting the county grant application for some studies on Highway 1. That has to be done if we're going to do it at all tonight. So the question to me is, should we try to do both items, or should we try to defer the lead item until the following meeting, so where it has a little more time? So I would entertain a motion one way or the other if anyone wants to change the agenda. Otherwise, we'll just go ahead and do them both.
I would like to make a motion that we move the lead letter to the next meeting. I have a lot of comments on it.
Is there a second?
Well, I would say if there are going to be significant comments on it, it might be better to know about it at least to have a discussion about it at this meeting. And if we don't have, if it's not going to, it doesn't necessarily need to be reviewed and approved at this meeting if there's, but yeah, I want that letter. So the thing with that letter is that they sent that letter on before April 15th. It's been, a couple months, and I think it's timely, and we should really make our voices heard.
Okay, but if we're going to discuss Jill's issues on it tonight, we're not going to, and you say we're not going to approve it tonight, we're still putting it off.
Well, at least it would be hopefully approved at the next meeting versus having, but having it up for a vote and not coming to a mutual decision on it.
Okay, do I hear a second to the motion to defer that item? I do not hear a second. So we'll go ahead and proceed to the next item, which is continuing correspondence between the MCC and the county regarding unleaded airport fuel. Just a little background, we did make an initial statement regarding this, asking the county for some specific action. We received a letter from the Public Works Department basically saying how they couldn't do what we wanted them to do. In the meantime, we've gotten a much better working relationship with the airport administration and have achieved some of what we wanted to get. And the letter that is on the table is in response to the letter that was written to us. And my concept of the letter is that it was very, very focused simply on what we want still about lead issues and nothing else. Just lead. So I'll turn that over to Michelle. You probably wanted to explain it a different way, but go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I can go ahead and share my screen. Pull up the letter. I won't read it, but I do want to go through the main points that we're making in the letter. Okay, so yeah, as I mentioned before, we had written a letter at the end of February, and we received a response at the beginning of April to our letter requesting three things, basically requesting three different studies to better understand the situation of lead being emitted from the small planes that fly in and out of the Half Moon Bay Airport. The three things that we asked for were a study of blood tests of children, not doing any additional blood tests, but looking at the past data, similar to what was done at the Reed Hillview Airport in Santa Clara, to better understand the situation and whether the lead that's being emitted, no doubt on that, from the airplanes is impacting children in the area. The second question is on the soil and the study of lead that is being deposited in the soil. And then the third request was the water testing. The county Department of Public Works sent a letter back and basically said that they weren't going to be doing any of that testing. They did offer an alternative, which was stormwater testing, and that in fact just completed. We got the results back, I think it was today, and their stormwater testing didn't show any lead. However, that doesn't mean it's not there, that there's a lot of dilution that happens before the water gets to where it drains out. And so, because that came back negative doesn't mean that there's no lead. So what we've done in this letter is reiterated some of the facts in the first couple paragraphs. So it is a fact that airborne lead emissions are occurring from flight operations in and around Half Moon Bay Airport. These small airplanes use fuel that contains lead. The only fuel that is available at the Half Moon Bay Airport contains lead. That lead is being emitted. The latest data we have is from the EPA that said that that's 333 pounds a year. That was from 2008. We know that airplane traffic has likely increased since then. Some of that may be offset by unleaded fuel that's available at different airports, including San Carlos, but it's a fact that there's lead being emitted. It also, just stating a point here that while lead in paint has been banned since 1978 and lead in cars has been banned since 1992, it has not changed. It has not been banned from airplanes, and lead from airplanes accounts for 70% of the lead entering the atmosphere today. All of this is linked and supported with documentation here. The study at Reed Hillview Airport statistically linked the ongoing use of the aviation fuel with elevated lead exposure for children in that area. Children living closest to the airport had higher levels of lead. The county said in their response that it could have been lead from houses. The study took that into consideration, and so it basically accounted for the homes that were built before 1978 and the fact that those likely had lead in them. And they basically used data to show that the increased levels of lead in these children was aside from the lead that could be in their household. So this letter basically says, based on this data, we can conclude that people living near the Half Moon Bay Airport are being exposed to lead from aviation fuel, which obviates the need for an additional study. And so we've basically rescinded our request, if this letter is passed, for that study of lead levels. Going on, basically say that the FAA has recognized the harmful effects of lead. It's actually charted a path to remove lead in this airplane fuel by 2030, but we think that San Mateo County needs to move faster, pointing out the fact that San Carlos Airport in 2014 was the first airport in California to sell unleaded aviation fuel. So why has it taken so long to offer that at Half Moon Bay Airport? Gretchen Kelly, since our letter came and presented, and she said that the airport has requested Measure K funding to install a tank at the Half Moon Bay Airport. So we're saying we support this decision, but as of now, that tank is not going to be even considered until the budget process in September. We'd like it to move faster. We'd also ask that the San Mateo County continue to work to reduce activities at the airport that emit significant amounts of lead, such as repeated touch and goes. And then we're saying that San Mateo County should join Santa Clara County at the forefront of the move to eliminate leaded fuel, and not just wait for 8 more years for the federal government to take action. And we think that San Mateo County should follow Santa Clara and stop selling leaded aviation fuel at its airports. And finally, we want to reiterate the request to test the soil. So this soil contamination, we know that the lead is being deposited on the soil in and around the airport. The stormwater testing, like I said earlier, it's subject to dilution. So just because the lead doesn't make its way from the soil all around the airport into that stormwater at a level that's detectable doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in the soil. And that soil is being used to grow plants, to grow vegetables for human consumption. And so it seems really unwise to allow that to continue without knowing for sure that whether there is or isn't lead in that soil. So whether or not that lead makes its way into plants could be an additional question. But this letter is supporting the testing to determine whether it's actually in the soil. So that kind of summarizes the letter. Happy to take questions or comments.
I think that most clarifying questions are actually going to be very closely linked to opinions and comments. So I think what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is take public comment first and then turn it to the council for deliberation. Is there any public comment on this?
Carlisle.
Okay, yes, I see her. Go ahead, Sid. 3 minutes.
Yes, I won't take 3 minutes. I just wanted to mention that it's no longer called the Half Moon Bay Airport, so you might want to modify your letter to say the Eddie Andrini Senior Airfield, which is what it's now called. Secondly, I don't think there's been any storms lately, so how old is that data where they tested the stormwater? I personally went on to the first flush as a volunteer, and that was, I think, back in November of last year, and all they did was test the runoff into the harbor from various points for the crew I was on anyway. So that's kind of a flim-flam excuse for them to say they've tested stormwater and they didn't find any lead. It's mostly to test for toxins and pest waste. But anyway, the last thing I think you might want to include in your letter is the fact that the airport is the aquifer for most of our drinking water, and you left that out completely. So I think you should try to squeeze in one sentence about that. There's a lot of airport wells that provide the drinking water for Moss Beach and Montera. Thank you.
Thank you, Sid. Any other public comment?
Yeah, just quickly comment. So in our original letter, like I said, we did ask for water testing. We subsequently found that the Montera Water and Sanitary District does do stormwater testing from those wells, and that testing did not show any lead in the water.
Yeah, not just stormwater testing, but testing from the wells. Yeah. Okay, so we're back to the council to decide about sending the letter. Dave, I think you have a comment.
Yeah, I have a few things. In reply to Carlisle, it is still the Half Moon Bay Airport. It's the Eddie Andrini Field. That's been made clear multiple times. And there is actual runoff all the time, both from the irrigation and from fog. So the RCD testing during storms has also never shown significant amounts of lead through there. So I think we can be pretty sure there's not significant amounts of lead on that field. So I don't think we should keep asking for that testing. I just, if the main concern is what's getting into children and or adults from the fuel, then we should just restrict it to that. Personally, I don't think this letter says anything new that we didn't say in the previous letter, other than thanking them for their response. So I don't see a need for it myself.
Jill, what did you want to say?
I'm sorry, Claire, are you talking to me? I can't hear you.
Yes, I'm talking to you. You had some comments.
Do you want everyone else to go first? I have a long list.
Can you?
Well, if other people say stuff, I'll take it off my list and I don't have to go over it.
I think we'd like to hear what you have to say right up front.
Okie doke. Okay, so I work a lot with statistics, and some of these make me uncomfortable. And I'll just start off with they reference, there's links in it, and one of them is to an 84-page technical support document, lead emissions from the use of leaded aviation gasoline in the United States. This is in paragraph 2. I don't know if people can see the letter, but in paragraph 2, it states, it is a fact that airborne lead emissions are occurring from flight operations in and around the Half Moon Bay Airport. Leaded aviation fuel sold at the airport is admitted during LTO landing and takeoff operations at the rate of 151 kilograms, 333 pounds per year based on 2008 study, and that's the link by the EPA. But I don't think that our little airport is actually emitting that much. So that's that doesn't really jibe with me. And I didn't have enough time to read the 84-page document, but I will. So that's one. The second thing's also in paragraph 2. It says, while lead has been banned in paint since 1978 and in cars in California since 1992, lead's still used in cars. And we have a lot of lead from cars. So we have lead wheel weights. That's one of the common things we see in the environment.
Jill, I could stop you there. Maybe rather than going through all the different places where lead appears in a car, maybe we could just simply reword that slightly. You could
How would you reword it?
I don't have the letter in front of me.
I'd like to make a motion. Well, we don't have a motion on the table, but in automobile fuel.
Okay, so that's another one that's kind of like, I can't get behind that one.
We can easily amend that.
And then there's another statement, airplanes. It says airplanes account for 70% of the lead entering the atmosphere today. And that may be true, but the EPA, the link to the EPA says they've been investigating this and they're going to apply the information to determine whether this pollution endangers human health and welfare. But it doesn't say that they've made the finding yet. It just says they're investigating it and they found some things and they're going to apply it. So that's another thing that makes me a little nervous. So that would be nice to see their findings, and that will not come out until 2023. Paragraph 3. Let's see, the one that you just talked about, the Reed Hillview Airport in Santa Clara, statistically linked ongoing use of leaded aviation gas with elevated lead exposure for children living near that airport. Okay, that could be true. But it's 131 pages, so I haven't read that entire document yet either. And I'm just uncomfortable approving something that I'm not, I mean, these are statistics. These are facts, like you're saying, so we better have them right. And then my question, I have a question. Well, I have a comment first. Plants don't take up lead very well. They're really, really bad at it. So asking to have the soil tested because we're concerned that the plants are taking up the lead and we're eating them is not valid in my mind. And then a question is, why do we need an unleaded fuel tank? We already have a leaded one. Why do we need an unleaded one? Why do we want more planes landing and filling up? Why can't they just go to San Carlos and fill up? So that's another question I have. And then we have a leaded tank because we have historic planes. So, I mean, we have the Andrini's P-51 Mustang, and that runs on leaded fuel. And if we don't have a leaded tank, which I don't think we sell that much of, has anyone looked at how much we actually sell?
Yes, that was presented at Kelly's presentation. It's not a lot. We're not saying eliminate the leaded fuel tank. We're saying add an additional fuel tank that isn't leaded.
Okay, so I thought planes were either leaded or unleaded, kind of like cars, you're leaded or unleaded. And in order to make a leaded, a plane like P-51 go to unleaded, you'd have to modify it.
Well, nobody's suggesting that. Nobody's suggesting that.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought we were suggesting taking out the unleaded tank.
Nobody's suggesting that.
The leaded tank.
Nobody's suggesting that.
Okay, those are my comments.
Okay, can we get a motion to approve the letter so we can continue to discuss it? Is there a motion to approve the letter?
I'd like to move to we approve the letter.
Is there a second? I'll second it.
Okay, I'd like to respond to all of those comments.
Yay.
Okay, so first of all, and I didn't do the best job of taking notes, but the data points that I'm referencing here were also referenced in our meeting and the presentation, the supporting documents that I had on February 23rd. I'm happy to spend time and walk you through every single statement and how it is supported, you know, or give you more time, I guess, if you need it to review. But I can show you a couple points here. Yes, the 2008 study. I mean, if you search for Half Moon Bay in that document, you'll find it. You'll find the actual number. If you read the introduction, you can see exactly how that's substantiated. Yeah. Please feel free to look into it. I'm happy to change. Yeah, that's probably it would be more accurate to say that lead is used in automotive fuel or was banned in automotive fuel in 1992. Happy to have an amendment to make that change. The lead on plants, you know, the lead in the soil. There's two things here actually. The lead is being emitted as the planes take off. And actually 80% of the lead that's emitted is done in the takeoff and not the landing. So if you think about like where the planes are typically taking off from, the lead is being emitted, the wind is playing a factor, it's probably going straight onto those fields, especially the Brussels sprouts fields. Even if the plants don't themselves take up lead from the soil, there's still lead being deposited on the plant and on the soil. And wouldn't you like to know that if you're eating that food? I would think that the people that are eating that would like to know if they're eating heavy metals that are bad for your, you know, basically cause major damage to your body, multiple body systems. The existing leaded fuel tank is contaminated with lead. You can't just take an existing tank and start doing unleaded fuel in it. Gretchen Kelly has said they're already planning on doing that. This only is requesting that to move more quickly and just reiterating the importance of that. Let's see, I think those are all the statements that I was able to note. But yeah, happy to spend some time, even if you'd like to offline, walking you through all of the data and where it comes from, because I can guarantee you that it's substantiated and it's here, even if you haven't had a chance to read it.
I'd like to make 4 points, and I'm going to jump in instead of waiting to the last. As I'm part of this project. One is that one reason I think we need to send this letter is not because it's breaking new ground, but because two reasons I think we should be sending this letter. One is because of the letter we got from the county, which was extremely dismissive and disrespectful. And I think we need to not just roll over and play dead. I think we need to respond to them. The other reason I think this letter is worth sending is because we have changed some of what we said. We have sharpened our focus a little bit. We have said we no longer are asking for lead studies of kids' blood levels. We are stipulating and assume that they are stipulating as well that lead is a bad thing and that it exists. Beyond that, I think there's a difference between writing a scientific paper and writing a political paper. It's important to me that what we say here is basically accurate, and I think it is. I know Michelle's done a lot of work, and what I've been able to look at from what she's done seems pretty accurate to me. And I don't think it needs to be up to scientific research standards in order to make our point to a political body. And then the plants, I was originally saying, look, I go with Jill. The plants are not a big issue. Just wash them and eat them. But I've done a little more research on that, and that's not a settled issue. It's not like I think something horrible is happening there, but I do think it merits a little more study because it's not 100% clear exactly what the effects of lead are on growing vegetation. So, and what models take it up and where and which plant. So for those reasons, I support the letter essentially as written. Dan, do you have some comments?
Thank you for calling on me, Claire. My comment is that in general, I feel that, that this is a good request, but I think want to reiterate some of Jill's concerns. And in regards to the testing of the soil, I don't see that as an issue. It's just a simple test. I think that we should have maybe some time to kind of get consensus on this. I think we might want to look at it again after some editing.
What in specific, what do you see as needing more consensus, Dan?
Consensus with the council. There's many, there's several, Len's not here, Greg's not here. And, Dave's brought some concerns. Jill's brought some concerns. That's what I mean by consensus. So that's my stand. I think that I don't want to go through and edit this tonight. I think that, we could bring it back.
Michelle, what do you think?
Well, I think it's a really important letter. I mean, I'm really disappointed in some members of the council that, don't feel that this is important enough to send. I think this is a critical issue, especially for those of us who live very close to the airport. I personally live in Seal Cove. I'm concerned that these emissions are impacting my kids and myself. It's not just kids, it's everyone who lives within, probably a mile of the airport, which includes a lot of us, primarily those in Moss Beach. I'm open, I guess, to delaying it until our next meeting. If I could take a chance to explain to the people who have questions about where the research came from, and it would also, I'm also open to getting Len and Greg's feedback. Greg's actually seen the letter. He worked with Claire and I on this, so I know he would be in support. But I'm okay pulling this and considering it in 2 weeks. If that's what we have to do to get it passed.
So as it stands, I would vote against it. If you can boil it down to the things that you think are really important and that are new, responding to what they sent, that you think they did not address, then I would probably vote for it. But don't bother to cite all these statistics. We've cited them before. Just address what's not been addressed by the county or where you disagree with them.
Yeah, so we didn't cite all these statistics in the previous letter. I actually intentionally made that last letter really concise, and I did cite them in that supporting document. But I did.
They were cited in the discussion. I don't think they need to be in a letter. I mean, everybody's read the Reed Hillview stuff. Nobody's disputing that it's an issue.
Yeah, it's just that rather than directly contradict the points, such as, the county saying that, the Reed Hillview study basically could have been attributed to household lead emissions. Like, I didn't directly go up against that, but I was really, offended actually by the fact that in their response letter, they said that they dismissed the concern that it could have come from other sources when it clearly, in the Reed Hillview study did come from the lead emissions from the airplane fuel. So, I'm happy to revise it and try to shorten it and be, more directly respond to what they said. But that was an attempt to do that in a way that's not like directly saying, contradicting what they said, basically.
I'm not asking you to contradict them or respond point by point. I'm just saying boil it down to the things that are left that are most important.
Okay.
Okay, is that what you want to decide to do?
And that's my personal opinion. But yeah, so I think we have all the feedback Michelle needs to go back and rewrite the letter. And I think Jill had the most significant points, so work with Jill to address her points. You know, I do feel it's an important issue. I just feel like we're getting too long.
I don't think I can work with her offline because they already have 3 people.
Well, we can remove one of the existing people. Yeah, for Brown Rock reasons, only 3 of us can work together, but maybe Claire or Greg can step aside for that. I think.
Yeah, one of us will certainly do that.
Also, Claire, on the 3rd paragraph from the end, the letter does ask for the leaded fuel to be removed.
Ultimately, okay. Well, we'll take another look at that.
Yeah, I mean, it's already going to be removed by 2030, so it asks for it to happen, that San Mateo County be at the forefront of that. Be a thought later.
Okay, well, that's a good point that needs to be straightened out then. So after the meeting, we'll decide who's going to work on revising it.
Okay, yeah, so do we have to make a motion to pull the letter?
Do we? Dave?
Well, I think we already decided we didn't want to vote on the letter today, that mostly Michelle just wanted to hear the feedback. Maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah, we just have a motion.
I think you misunderstood, but so you can withdraw the motion, right?
I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay. All right, the final item, which I hope will be straightforward, is Chandra here by any chance?
I am.
You are. Okay. Basically, thank you so much. As introduction to this, the county and the city of Half Moon Bay, you can straighten me out if I'm wrong, are jointly applying for grants to study transit demands on Highway 1. They have asked us to support their application for the grant. This is not about what they're going to decide with their study. It's just so that we hope they get their money. Is that correct, Chandra? Please tell us what we're doing.
Yes. So the Transportation Authority has released a call for projects called the Alternative Congestion Relief Transportation Demand Management Program. It's the very first cycle of the grant, and it's anticipated to continue on in the future. But one thing that the Transportation Authority is really encouraging jurisdictions to do this cycle is to apply for transportation demand management planning so that they can identify projects that would be eligible for future cycles of the call for projects. So the city of Half Moon Bay and the county are separately applying for the grant, but are making it very clear that if we are both awarded, we would pool resources to prepare one joint plan. That's how the Transportation Authority advised us to move forward with the application. So the letter before you for consideration is to support our respective efforts, Half Moon Bay and the counties, to pursue this grant program to do transportation demand management planning. And just by way of more explanation there, transportation demand management is really about trying to optimize sort of use of all the modes that are available for transportation. And so maybe people might be more familiar with it in terms of things like subsidies offered, by example, for commute.org. If you carpool or vanpool, guaranteed ride home programs, shuttles, it's really a comprehensive approach. And I think our thinking around partnering with the city of Half Moon Bay is a very intentional one to be able to understand and identify programs that would benefit programs and sort of things like maybe shared parking sites in Half Moon Bay that would support Midcoast residents and vice versa, since we have to travel through each other's respective jurisdictions. So the letter today is really about supporting our grant application in the hopes that we would be awarded. And as Claire said, we would be coming back to you all if we are awarded as we begin the planning process.
Thank you. Dave, could you put are you able to put the letter up for us to look at?
Yeah, I can. Give me just a second here.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the letter and then we can discuss it? You should have already read this prior to the meeting.
I'll move to approve the letter.
Can I get a second? I will second it. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Chandra? Any public comment? Do you want to comment on the letter itself at all, Chandra?
I mean, sure. I think
you don't have to.
Well, so if it's helpful, I think it's just really referencing I think both the city and the county have, and as all of you know, have gone through many planning processes over the past decade plus that allude to transportation demand management strategies. Some of those are in Connect the Coastside, some of them are in the Coastside Transit Study, some of them are in the Coastside Access Study. They're sort of all over in different places, and I think this is really trying to do a fresh look and establishing new partnerships to really, understand and move that forward, identify the resources and policy interventions that are needed that are more specific. So the letter is just really framing, I think, that hopefully from the MCC's perspective that we've worked closely, on past planning process, that there are issues of congestion and traffic, and also that in order to address those, we really need to reduce the number of people that are using single occupancy vehicles. In order to address congestion, we just really have to reduce the amount of people that are driving. And so having other supportive programs and policies and services to enable that work could support that vision, and that MCC would be a place where the county and city could engage residents as we prepare the plan.
Okay, thank you. My perspective on this is that this is actually sort of professional courtesy that when another agency is trying to work on something that will potentially benefit us and wants us to support them in getting funding to do so, we should say, yes, we support you getting your funding so you can work on something with us. But that's my perspective. I'm open to any other comments that anybody wants to make on this prior to voting on it.
Claire, is this letter written by someone on the MCC or was it written by Chandra?
It's both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who wrote it?
Yeah, that's often the case when we do letters supporting grants, because the people applying for the grant know exactly what wording is needed.
Okay.
So they provide sort of a format, and we tweak it, and then there it is.
Is this a condition of the grant that you need community, involvement, or?
So it's we want to be able to show community support. It would help us get more points on the grant application to be able to provide things like letters of support and evidence that we've engaged, that we have a basis for applying for what we're applying for. So it's not a requirement, but it certainly would support our efforts.
I see.
Any other thoughts? Can we call for, okay, Sid, you had a comment?
I didn't read this letter, but is this to get Half Moon Bay money and we're just supporting it, or is it for money, a big pot of money that might be split down the road?
No, it's to get the county money, and then the Half Moon Bay is also seeking money, but they're not asking us to support them. But then they will work together when they both get their money.
So there's separate pots of money up for grabs, basically.
It's one pot of. It's the call for projects has sort of a pot of funds. Half Moon Bay and the county are both applying for separate applications.
Got it.
But we would pool the funds. So the way that we've both drafted our letters, our grant applications has been to be very intentional that we intend to partner if we are both awarded to pursue the proposed plan. And that's really our goal, is to both get awarded so we can pool resources.
And are the pots of money separated at that point, or do they get the lion's share and we get the crumbs?
It's all going to be one pot. So there's a maximum amount of funds that we can both apply for, which is $100,000 each. We're each putting in a match of $10,000 each. So if we were to both be awarded, we would be pursuing $220,000 in funds towards this planning project. And if we were both to be awarded, we would establish appropriate agreements between the county, the Transportation Authority, and Half Moon Bay in order to have sort of a shared request for proposals process, for example, to hire a consultant to support the planning process.
Okay, that explains it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, can we...
Claire, I saw somebody had a question in the chat too.
We're not going into possible projects at this point. This is simply to get the money so they can start the study. So can we call for a vote?
Yes.
Michelle, would you call the roll, please, on approving this letter?
Okay. Claire?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Anne?
No.
Dave?
Yes.
And I vote yes. It's 4-1. It passes.
Thank you very much. Thanks for getting up or staying up so late, Chandra. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And I am submitting tomorrow, Claire, so if you could send me the version tomorrow, that would be great.
Okay. All right. Will do. Okay. Moving along, we have council activity. Is there anything anybody wants to report on that?
I'll just very briefly say I've watched both boards of supervisors meetings that were run as hybrid meetings, and they seem to work pretty well. 3 board members present, 2 remote. And at the Planning Commission meeting today, which I watched, at the end of the meeting, they discussed whether they might go to hybrid since they meet in the same chambers. They'll discuss that probably later in June or July. And then, of course, everybody knows the Half Moon Bay City Council decided they were not ready for hybrid meetings. So just wanted to report on that.
Okay. Dan? Dan, you have your hand up?
Yes. So I was on the San Mateo County Harbor District meeting today. It's a special meeting. They discussed approving a firm to engineer, do outreach for the replacement of the Harbor District Retail Center, which includes Catch Joanne, the one retail center there. Doesn't sound like they clearly know what they want to do, but my guess is, so they approved it. And also later in the meeting came up a permit to be granted towards a e-bike rental facility. And there were many concerns about e-bikes basically getting along with pedestrians and other bicycles, and just the element of the change in safety situation when you increase the amount of e-bikes. So that came up, and it was voted down. I'll be postponed. There was early in the meeting, Harvey mentioned that the city of Half Moon Bay is looking to learn more. And so I think they did the right thing today, is to learn more, wait. And anyway, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, future agendas. I guess we're thinking of adding the lead issue to the next agenda. I didn't get a clear sense as to whether people wanted to also do anything more on Quarry Park at the next meeting or not. I still don't have a clear sense of it.
I don't.
I think it's worth the time
for this meeting.
Pardon me?
I don't think it's essential to take an action on it right now.
Okay. Okay. Anybody have anything that they want to make sure that we consider? I mean, I've got some possibilities on the end of this meeting's agenda, and there's some more things in the long line of lists of things, but nothing anybody wants to bring up tonight, apparently. Okay, was there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Could you call the second? Can you call the roll, please?
Yes, Claire?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I vote yes. 5-0, we're adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Recording stopped.